All right, welcome everybody to episode number 75 of Sports Cards Live. Today is January the 16th, 2020. I am Jeremy Lee, and tonight we have joining us none other than Karvin Cheung, the architect. But before we bring out Karvin, I do want to thank last Saturday's guest, Dr. James Beckett. Needs no further description than that. On After Hours, we had Jay Yokish. Couple of great episodes. They are living on the YouTube channel in the archives. Feel free to go check those out. Next Saturday, my guest will be Brad Hartland of PSA Canada. That's going to be an interesting discussion. You'll want to check that one out. And tonight on After Hours, after we're done with Karvin, in a couple hours time, Rich Ho, who's pretty much a super collector, will be joining me on After Hours for a nice chilled out discussion. I want to thank all new members for joining, all new viewers for joining the show tonight. Thanks to Karvin for attracting new viewers to the show. I appreciate that as well. Just hit over 1,900 subscriptions on YouTube. So thanks to everybody who has subscribed. And if you haven't yet, please go ahead and do that. Greatly appreciate it. Want to remind everybody to follow the Big Three Hockey on Instagram. Supporters of the show. These guys showcase the finest singles in the hobby. Check them out. Give them a follow on Instagram. I also want to shout out Basketball Fanatic. They are offering 12 issues of their magazine for $80 US. Feel free to go to the paypal.me on the ticker right now, send them the money, mention SCL, and they will send you those issues. All right. As always, guys, comments and questions are in play. Karvin's in the back room. He's ready to come out. Let's get to him. Let's get to Karvin. You know, this is his third time appearing on Sports Cards Live. He was my first guest ever on episode 2. He made another appearance on episode number 30. He's known for inventing the cup and Exquisite. He still works in the industry within the distribution channels. He's a fan of the Toronto Maple Leafs. He's a fan of Sidney Crosby. He's originally from Toronto, Ontario, hailing currently from San Diego, California. We are going to bring him out right now. Karvin Cheung, welcome to episode number 75 of Sports Cards Live. How you doing tonight, my friend?
I'm doing great. I can't believe I have a milestone of 75. That's awesome. I still remember the 75 anniversary patches on the NHL jerseys. So that's how old I am.
The 75th anniversary. Wasn't that the one where they, in 1991-92 Pro Set, there's a 75th anniversary hologram as well? Yeah, numbered out of 10,000 for sure. For sure. Well, listen, great to have you back, Karvin. As I mentioned, you were the first guest I ever had. And I've told the story recently to a couple of people, asked like, you know, the show, how did it end up becoming what it became? And were you planning? I say, no, I wasn't planning anything, but I knew that when I started it, I wanted to come out with a bang. So I called my friend Karvin. I said, Karv, will you come on the show? I want to start this thing off right. And you agreed. And it's been a great ride ever since. So I want to thank you for that. And we also had you on episode 30, which was back in, I think, July. It was a reaction episode to the Lebron James RPA out of 23 that sold for $1.8 million. You joined me with Josh Johnson from Cardboard Chronicles also, and we had a great episode then. So anyway, we just finished 2020, and before we get into our topics, I do want to give you an opportunity here to address the hobby a little bit, because there's a few things you want to say. So how about it, my man?
Yeah, so ever since I left in 2014 from Panini, I thought that was it. You know, I'm done with sports cards in terms of creating cards, and I didn't really join any community. I kind of went AWOL for a while. I think the first event that really got me back into it was the 2019 National, where I was standing in front of a collector. He's actually, his Instagram is collector291 Mike. He's a teenager who's collecting cards, and one of my bosses was there. He's like, "So what do you collect?" He goes, "Exquisite." So this is David Rio, and he just turns to me and he starts smiling at me, and I go, and he goes to Mike. He goes, "Hey, do you know who this guy is?" He goes, "No, who is he?" He goes, "He's the guy who created Exquisite." And I was like, "Yeah, I am." You know, humbly, I just kind of said, "Yeah, I am." He goes, "No way. There's no way that the guy who created Exquisite is standing right in front of me." So we started chatting, and all of a sudden he's like, "Dude, you gotta join Instagram." But knowing, I think, Jeremy, you know my job duties, and I've been flying all over the world. Every year I stay about 2 months to 3 months in Asia. I actually have an apartment in Shanghai that I haven't even used in the last year because of the pandemic. And because I'm stationed at home now, I'm actually engaging with a lot of the collectors. And one thing of note I will say, and I said it on your first episode, I believe, is that it's great to meet athletes. It's great to have that experience. But the collectors, the experience with the collectors is what drives me. It re-energizes me. It makes me more passionate about the hobby. I'm now joining the groups of being a collector. I was a collector, then became into the distribution business, then went up to Upper Deck and created products, and now I'm back to a collector. It's kind of killing me because I have all these creative ideas that's going through my head day after day after day. And thank you for everyone reaching out to me and, you know, just kind of saying, hey, we appreciate what you did, but realistically, it's the collectors that make the products that it does. And by all means, definitely send your feedback to the companies, Topps, Panini, Upper Deck, even Leaf, because the people that work, that grind every day, don't get enough credit for what they do. So definitely give them some feedback, maybe some constructive criticism if you choose to, but always be positive, and those people would really be enthused and energized from your feedback. So just a heads up, but thank you to everyone.
Great message. So you're enjoying the Instagram community, aren't you?
I am, and I thank you for all the new followers, and I appreciate everyone just communicating with me and giving me a chance to even express some of the stories that I have behind the cards and behind some of the athletes. So I love sharing that with people.
Right on, man. So I'm curious. You just sparked my interest in something because you talked about your history. When you because you got your first job with a card company was Upper Deck, and before that, you were a vendor set up at card shows. You had a card shop that you worked with, I believe, some family members in that. How did you actually get the job at Upper Deck originally? And when you got that job, was part of the interview process like what fresh ideas can you bring to the table?
So I started in '89. Now, I'll be honest, I was a card geek when I was a kid. And it was a geeky thing to do, collect cards. But by the time you got to about 10, 11, 12 years old, people were like, you still collecting hockey cards? So it's kind of like a complex. You're like, yeah, okay, I have to give it up. You know, I got to give it up. But later on, when '89 came out, it pulled me back in. So obviously, I always had that interest because of the hologram and the double-sided photos. But with that being said, I started having my own business, running 2 flea markets, hustling for the shows. I was at the first ever Sports Card Expo. I was set up there. So all the way till you met me at the Sports Card Expos, I mean, I was set up until I left for Upper Deck. Afterwards, I worked for a distribution company called Grosvenor in Toronto, and we would have the brainstorming meetings and feedback meetings, and I think Upper Deck took notice that I had a lot to offer in terms of ideas and all that. And then later on, when I was available as a free agent, then they called me up and said, hey, why don't you come down for an interview? And I think the process went well, and plus I had a dream job, just going to work for the company that really pulled me back into it. I could be the ultimate geek now and create cards. So it was a fun job and a very passionate job.
Right on. Okay, so we're going to get into some of the topics we have on hand. We collected some questions from Instagram over the last couple of days, which we're going to get to a little bit. Just want to welcome everybody who's watching. We've got a bunch of guys in the house. Hockey Cards Official, Rondell, Brent Terman, Axonite, Mike Truman, LG, B. Roy, Brett, Ryan, Dennis. See all you guys there. Thank you so much for joining us. Mark Lee's around, Jason Pringle. All right, guys, if I didn't say your name, peeps, I apologize. We're not Daniel. I see you there. Brody the Kid did his show with Dr. Beckett earlier tonight. I caught a snippet of it. Check out Brody the Kid on YouTube as well, everybody. Okay, Karvin. So you got the job at Upper Deck. One thing leads to another. You invent Exquisite in 2003. You go ahead and by 2005, it's time to produce a product for hockey that's going to be at that same price point. You guys at Upper Deck come up with the Cup, and it was a great year for the Cup because it was a dual rookie year. We had a lockout in 04-05, so there were no products in 04, no rookie cards, I shouldn't say. There were products, but there were no rookie cards in 04-05, maybe a few holdovers. But in 05-06, you had the dual rookie class. It was a perfect time to launch the Cup, and the cornerstone card in the set is and was the Sidney Crosby RPA. And you, as a collector, as a hockey fan, and as the inventor of the product, have been chasing one of these cards for a long time.
I have, yeah.
You finally acquired a Crosby Cup rookie patch auto for your collection. Tell us the story. Tell us the story about the chase and the catch.
There it is. So I don't know if you can see it. The light's probably not doing well with it. Okay, so it's a 1 color. Obviously, if it's a 3 color, the price goes up substantially. It's actually something I couldn't really asked the wife to allow me to buy my legacy card. So obviously, I think with the LeBrons going as crazy as it had, I said I had to own at least one of my 2 legacy cards, right? One exquisite 0304 LeBron, which I wanted badly, but now that it's gone to length to the price where it's at, I'm almost $1 million. There's no way I can afford that. And so I said Crosby. I've been looking at Crosby for ever since 0506. I've been looking at LeBron since 0304, where they're ending. And for an actual fact, I think about up to 7 years after the Cup was launched, Crosby was outselling LeBron's. And LeBron just took off in the last 5-6 years to reach to the heights it has. And yet Crosby has basically hovered around the same price, maybe 10, 20%, maybe 30% more. At this point, I was just like, you know what? I just got to buy one now. I got to own this. Part of the reason is in 2018, I had my daughter, and for what I've done in terms of what I've accomplished in our industry, I figured, you know what, she should own something that is one of my legacy cards. So it's really for her. It's not for sale. It's not for resale. It's not something I would look at. It's worth $500,000, $1 million. I don't think I'd sell it. Maybe she would, but for me, I wouldn't. So that's the main reason. That's the main driver. I think kids change our lives in the sense that we wanted a piece of our legacy with them.
For sure. So tell us a little bit about how you acquired the card.
Well, it was tough because everyone would tell me, oh, you can get one for 10, 15, maybe 20,000. And I was like, I can't find one. But I know, obviously, with my past, I know a lot of exquisite collectors. I know a lot of cup collectors. And there was a few on eBay, and I was looking, well, let me call somebody that I know has good lineage, a friend of mine and a friend of yours, probably, Anthony Switek. So, he actually pointed out, well, he has a 1 color, a 9, that he feels that it's actually should be a 9.5. And, we worked out a deal. I paid over time. I couldn't come up with the money immediately, and he was willing to accept that, probably mainly because of my involvement in the Cup. And his collection is just massive in terms of 0506, especially OV, but also Crosby too. So we worked out a deal over time, and by the end of the year, I said, hey, I got to pay off the whole entire amount. And he said, you can wait till January 3, January 4. I go, no. For Chinese people, we're superstitious, and for Chinese New Year, you're not supposed to owe anybody any money. So I said, you know what? December 31st, I got to pay you right now. That's the way that it has to work, right? So I feel bad that I don't pay you. So we did the final deal and the final payment, and I got the card recently. So I'm happy to have it.
Nice. That's the first time that I've heard where and who you got it from. I'm not surprised it came from Anthony. We've known Anthony for probably 15 years now. Anthony's someone I invited onto the show recently because his Instagram account has kind of blown up because he probably has the finest modern hockey collection in the world. I think some of these auction houses would lose their lids if they could get their hands on them. And I invited him on, but he wasn't interested. So I want to shout out to everybody watching. If you're on Instagram, go to the account. It's at Ovechkin. I don't remember the exact.
Ovechkin the Great, I believe it's.
Ovechkin the Great. There's an 8 in there somewhere. Yeah. You can't miss his account. It's ridiculous what he's got. But go tell him you want to see him on the show, and maybe he'll finally cave and come on an episode here with me. So that would be great. But
and in fact, I have an Asian collector that just recently bought the 1 of 99 Crosby from him. So I'll probably show the reveal on Instagram Live in the next week or so on that card. But it's not mine. I wish I can afford that card, but it's going into a private collection and it probably won't be seen. So I'll have the last chance to show it. And then knowing all these cards, we all know that I hand-packed the Cup, a majority of these cards. So I don't even know if my fingerprints or DNA are still on these cards.
That's hilarious, man. It probably is. All right, I just want to bring up Terry's comment here because I agree wholeheartedly. He says never ask the wife about buying a card. That's your first mistake, Carv. But hey, obviously you got one, so that's all right. That's all right. And Mark Lee shouts you out, one of the good guys in the biz. Go back 40 years with Karvin. Very nice. Mark's a veteran of the card show circuit. Legion, good evening. Oh, here we go. Amish Dave Archer just gave us. This is the account we're talking about, everybody. At Ovechkin the Great 8. Go follow him on Instagram and then send him a message and say, hey, we want you to go on Sports Cards Live. And I bet if enough people ask, he'll agree to come on. And he's a friend. I've known him for years. We had dinner on the Sunday night after the National in Chicago in 2019. and he still won't come on with me. So let him know. Let's put some pressure on this guy. His collection is it's not to be believed. It's really crazy. So Davey wants to know what did the 01 of 99 go for? I mean, I don't know if we can talk.
I can't really disclose that. All I know is that I had to be the mediator on this deal. So I love to tell everyone, but I just can't. It's not my card. It's not, I'm not the buyer or the seller. So it's not my choice.
No.
But I'll get the card and I'll show it to everyone, and everyone will get to see the reveal in the next week or so. So I'll try my first Instagram live next week sometime.
All right. Well, and the funny thing is, Dave, the guy who posted this question, there was a third person that I had dinner with Anthony in August of 2019 after the National. It was Dave, whose name is on the screen. The three of us had dinner at a Mexican restaurant just in one of the suburbs around Chicago last year. Thanks for joining, Dave. Jordan Hagedorn, good evening to you. Great to see you, buddy.
Hi, Jordan.
All right. So in your opinion, Karvin, I want to talk about GOATs for a second. Greatest of all times. It's something that is a very hot topic in the hobby. It's a terminology everybody's using. The GOAT, Michael, is it Michael Jordan? Is it LeBron James? Is it Wayne Gretzky? Is it Mario Lemieux? Is it Bobby Orr? Who is it? In your opinion, Karvin, where does Sidney Crosby fall within the discussion of GOATs?
Well, if you say all time, I mean, we have to go back to Gretzky and Bobby Orr. I mean, for me, the greatest of all time for my lifetime would probably be Bobby Orr, and then probably Gretzky. But Crosby is right up there with them. And the main reason why is that, number one, we know that his career stats aren't the best. He's suffered a lot of injuries. He's not the biggest of all players, and he plays very shifty. He's not an extremely fast skater, similar to Gretzky. He's very deceptive in terms of his speed. What I would say about Crosby, he's won at every single level. He's won the World Juniors gold. He's won the World Championship gold. He's won with the Pittsburgh Penguins as a champion. He also won the Olympic gold medal in 2010 and 2014, and we can get back to that a little bit later. The other thing of note that a lot of people don't realize, the younger collectors and probably of hockey even, or even if you're not a big collector of hockey, or you're not a big hockey fan, he probably single-handedly saved the franchise, the Pittsburgh Penguins, from moving. At that time, it was all talking about Jim Baselli from Blackberry wanted to buy Pittsburgh, moving to Hamilton. That was the big deal that was going on. And even though Mario Lemieux was one of the owners, they were struggling. And when that chance for Crosby to be the number one pick for the Pittsburgh Penguins, it saved the franchise. I mean, I might do an Instagram post with Dr. J and Sidney Crosby saying the hockey player and the fish that saved Pittsburgh. So
yeah,
yeah, that goes back a long time.
The Pittsburgh Penguins franchise were very lucky, really, because let's if you go back to 1985. Mario Lemieux came around at the perfect time. The Pittsburgh Penguins were bottom of the barrel NHL team at the time. Mario Lemieux comes around, and 6 years later, they win the Stanley Cup.
Right.
Because of him. And of course, there were other great players on that team by then. And then he starts to wind down. They get the number one overall draft pick, and lo and behold, they draft the next Mario Lemieux, being Sidney Crosby. So boy, did that team ever have some fortune. And they managed to secure Evgeny Malkin as well. Not too much later. Actually, that brings me to, I got a question on Instagram, was from at RGB Hockey, and he posed the question for you to answer if you have a take on it. Basically, he was wondering, do you see Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin retiring as Pittsburgh Penguins?
Crosby for sure. I can't see Pittsburgh letting Crosby go just because of it's just the legacy. Now, I don't know if a lot of people follow Sidney, but his favorite team is the Habs. So, I mean, that could be an opportunity for him to become a Montreal Canadian in the future. I'm sure Habs fans would love to hear that. And also, I don't know if not a lot of people know, his father, Troy Crosby, was drafted by the Montreal Canadiens after Patrick Wall was drafted in the same draft year. So I'm sure maybe that's the reason why he's a Montreal Canadiens fan. But the fact that he's in Nova Scotia on the East Coast, Montreal is definitely the team of choice there, not the Toronto Maple Leafs.
And what about Malkin? Do you think you could just see them letting him go, or you can see him deciding to move on?
I mean, Malkin's skills are up there still. I mean, he's still a top franchise player, and Is it going to be letting him go, or is he willing to sign for less? If I had to pick one of the two, it'd be Crosby you'd keep. But I'm not sure if Malkin would be gone either. I think he'll probably end up staying with Pittsburgh.
Okay, well, hey, that answers the question we got. Let's talk about the other mega star for the Pittsburgh Penguins during their history, which in my opinion is none other than Jaromir Jagr, one of the most dynamic players of all time, and a guy who's still playing professional hockey at the age of 58 or something like that. I think 46 or something. He's, gosh, maybe even older. But anyway, there were a couple big card sales recently that occurred. Obviously, there's the 1952 Topps Mickey Mantle. We'll talk about that in a second. But one that was under the radar was this is from the junk wax era, a 1990-91 O-Pee-Chee Premier Jaromir Jagr rookie card in a BGS 10 slab. Okay, this card, now this is a card that you can buy raw, I don't know, a couple months ago for, I don't know, $25, $30. Yes. Probably you could buy a PSA 10 a year ago for about $80 to $100. Now they've gone up in value. A BGS 10 just sold the other day for, I wrote it down here, $4,750 US dollars. It's a lot of money for a card where the PSA 10 version sells for about $500 right now. You know, what do you think when you hear that? When you hear that a junk wax era card, a Jagr O-Pee-Chee Premier rookie sells for just shy of $5,000, what do you think?
I think it's great for hockey. It comes down to it. He's one of the iconic players in that era between Gretzky retiring. Well, not Gretzky retiring. I guess the Lemieux years when they won the Stanley Cup, all the way till Sidney, or till he left for the KHL, and that was a long time ago. In fact, his numbers. So we talk about Ovechkin beating possibly Gretzky's record for most goals. Jagr was on pace, but he went to the KHL instead, and thus obviously he could not beat that record. But I mean, he was I won't say a finished flash, but he was definitely a fun player to watch. I mean, always saluting, doing the salute after goals. He was like the Ovechkin back in the day. Like, he was just a fun player. Like, it's funny how we looked at hockey players in terms of the Canadians. The Canadian hockey players like Sidney and Mario and Wayne, they were kind of quiet. They knew that they were going to be the next star, and the parents groomed them to be that way. And then you got the Europeans that come in. Most of them are quiet, but then Jagr was not. And of course, Ovi is completely different. He's one of the most fun players to watch and also to meet too. So if you have an experience with him, he's a great person to hang out for a bit.
Well, if you can arrange that, I'd be happy to hang out with Ovi for a couple of days. That'd be a lot of fun. I just want to mention this Jagr card that sold, because when we chatted about it a bit earlier, you made the comment that they're not hard cards to grade. It's not that hard to get, say, a PSA 10, but a BGS 10 has proven to be quite difficult. And if we look at the populations, the population of the BGS 10 is 33 copies have achieved that status, that grade, out of 3,896 that have been submitted to BGS grading. If you look at the PSA 10s, it's a big difference. 33 BGS 10s, 2,736 PSA 10s out of 8,365 graded. So about 30% or so are getting that lofty PSA 10 status. But if you add up both total pops from each company, you get 12,261 cards. And this one that sold for $4,750, I think we could argue is one of the 33 finest copies out of over 12,000, putting them in the top 0.27% of the population. Hence why it gets such a premium, being $4,750 versus $500 for a PSA 10 or probably $50 for a raw copy. Based on the history, again, the history of the hobby, Karvin, but based on the history of the hobby, based on what's gone on really in the last year, but more importantly for hockey in the last month, really since the Gretzky PSA 10 sold, you said earlier it's good for hockey. I agree. It's good for the hockey segment of the hobby. But do you think that a card is worthy of that price or that value based on such a small population? Like, does that resonate with you that a card that there's 33 out of over 12,200 that have achieved that grade, that it should be worth that much more than the rest?
I agree with that. I mean, in the end, the one thing that we know about hockey collectors is that a lot of them are collectors. There's not a lot of cards that hockey collectors are willing to give up. There's a lot of PC collectors. There's a lot of people that are probably speculating on these cards. And if a 10 is so hard to achieve, I mean, all we have to do is look at pop reports across the board on all cards. That's a really low pop report. It's, less than 1% for a 10 is really low. So that's one of the 33 best cards. So if you had a Jagr card that was a rookie out of 33, what is it worth per se? Right. So, I mean, that's actually, a good comparison if you want to look at it that way on a pop report. But I think that, yes, on a grade wise, I know that there's a lot of BGS 9s, a lot of PSA 10s. And I think part of the reason why you're not seeing that pristine quality is that when we were all dealers, I mean, I was a dealer back in 1990, 91. I was selling O-Pee-Chee Premier. People had stacks of all the rookies, breaking up boxes and had stacks of rookies in little count cases. So chances are a lot of these cards got, moved around, shifted around, one corner, one side could have got damaged. Or a lot of people were selling sets in the little 132 card boxes that they were selling these Premier sets. So that's the only way you're getting it. Now, there are people that have wax now, or have foil, and you can buy foil, but centering becomes an issue because it's a border card, and also it's actually not an easy foil to rip like it is today too. So it kind of, I don't even know what it's almost like a skin that comes off the foil on that pack. So And how do I know? Because I still have cases of that stuff back home. So that's how long I go far. I used to set up at St. Gabe's Church in Toronto on Bayview with all the 1991 Premier wax. So I remember that stuff fondly. The gold packs and the black boxes.
I remember the day it came out, man. It was so premium in its time, and it was like, whoa! Oh, O-Pee-Chee came out with another set in the same year. Like we'd never seen two sets by one manufacturer in the same year. Right. That was like, whoa, this is awesome. So, and what a beautiful card it was, and it still is. I think there's an argument to be made, and some people, if you're listening to what we're talking about in terms of those population numbers, it's quite likely that if you took all of those 2,700 PSA 10s, a couple of those would probably achieve a BGS 10 grade as well if they were to be crossed over. But no one's ever going to take that risk and do it. I just wanted to make that point. We were talking about GOATs earlier, Karvin. You said you erroneously said that Bobby Orr is the GOAT and then Wayne Gretzky. I jest when I say erroneously, but Hockey Cards Official agrees with you. Same with him, and Hockey says, yeah, Bobby Orr is the GOAT. But for the record, I'm going to state that, in my opinion, the GOAT is Wayne Gretzky. But hey, I just want to get that out there. I want to thank you, John, for the really nice comment. Appreciate that. Welcome to the show. And Mark says, my worry is that once again, we're producing too many rookie cards, young guns, regular canvas, exclusive. Aren't you worried about it getting ridiculous again? So, I mean, I got some thoughts on that, Karvin, but, this comes back to the whole discussion. Are we entering into another period like we did in the 90s? Now, it's been talked about on this show a few times, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but do you want to share your perspective on maybe what is either similar between what's going on right now in the hobby and the early 90s, and also maybe what's different?
I think there's a lot of differences in terms of the rookie cards. Young gun, and we can talk about this. I mean, Young Gun, I equate, especially for Sidney Crosby, is the equivalent to Topps Chrome. That's a type of brand equity both sets had. You didn't have chromium back then in hockey. So that's the core set that everyone puts together. It's the one set that if you're a hockey guy, you have to have an Upper Deck set. And the Young Guns is basically the big rookie card for that group of set collectors. All these other rookies, yes, there's a lot of sets out there, but it's great. I think when you want to collect rookies, obviously we have PC collectors, guys like for yourself, like you collect Dale Hawerchuk and a little bit of Solani, and you go through the 7 Cs just to find your white whale Dale Hawerchuk cards. Well, there's going to be people that don't have a PC, but they collect rookies, and it's great for them to collect all the array, all the different array of rookie cards that they can get. And I think it's important that we have different price points, because when you have an O-Pee-Chee, let's say a rookie card, that O-Pee-Chee card that's $10, that is an entry point for a kid or a child or a new collector. I was just talking to a nephew of mine, and he was like, "Oh, I got some Mahomes rookies," and he was showing me like, yeah, Donruss rookies. or he was looking for a Donruss rookie. He had some other rookie cards, rookie set, and I was like, yeah, that's great. That's an entry point for him to get a Mahomes rookie. And now he wants to upgrade, or he wants to buy more to add to his Mahomes collection, and that's what we need to see, because if you have that one card, that's one rookie card, there's nothing else for you to get. You're done for the year, right? So for example, Lafreniere, he has a UD card, he has that, and then all of a sudden you don't have all these other sets. Part of the enjoyment is the journey, it's the chase, it's to acquire the cards. Once it's done, and you have to wait another 3 months for it, then you're out of the hobby for a while. And I think that's what's great about our community, is that, and also a lot of the hockey collectors, along with other sports too, they're willing to help out anybody to, hey, you need this, I'll trade you. Even if I don't do well in the trade, they're fine with that, especially for a young child that's starting up their collection.
Yeah, for sure. We see that all the time in the hobby, people being quite generous. It's really nice to see, for sure. Okay, I want to bring up Daniel's comment here about Crosby. He's 36 goals away from 500. I mean, that's a big deal. If you're watching the show right now and you're not a hockey guy, but you're interested in it because you watch this show or for whatever reason, 500 goals, that's a big number. What would that equate to in terms of home runs, do you think, Karvin?
500.
500 home runs. So I mean, it's a big number, and not every player gets there. That's for darn sure. So that'll be nice. And you got to think that there's, it's the first time I've considered it, was Daniel's comment here, and it makes me wonder if it's, we talked about future accomplishments being baked into current prices. People are, a year ahead of someone if someone's going to be in the Hall of Fame in most cases. So right. The price goes up in advance. I wonder if the hobby has considered that Crosby's on the verge of 500 goals, could get there in this shortened season. It's possible, but for sure next season you've got to think he'll get there.
Sure.
You think it's baked into the prices already, or do you think the hobby's even aware that he's that close to 500 goals?
Well, what we did see for sure was baked into their prices is Ovi. I mean, for a long time, I'm sure every single Ovi collector and every hockey collector was like, why is Ovechkin so reasonably cheap in comparison to everything else? And now, in many cases, Ovechkin has surpassed Crosby, because it almost came in the same time when people mentioned, hey, Ovi has a shot at breaking Gretzky's record. So when that happened, all the cards went up. So he had a huge surge in pricing. He's past Crosby. And I think a lot of people kind of forgotten about Crosby. Crosby is it's kind of weird. He has a mild personality, but he has people that love him. He also has a lot of people that hate him. Similar to like Gretzky was back in the day. Not so much aura. Aura doesn't have that aura around him for that reason. But Gretzky, I used to hate Gretzky when I was a kid, so maybe that's why he's my number 2, just because I thought he wasn't tough enough. He was just always shifty and always wore that Jofa hat, the helmet that really is not even a helmet. Kind of make him look a little bit more awkward, I guess. And it comes down to it. I think Crosby has that part of the collectors that don't like him. Even Canadian, I hear a lot of Canadian collectors don't like him. They like Ovi more because he's more flamboyant. He's more fun to watch, and I think that's part of the reason. But it's starting to move up. As we talk about Crosby, I think about 2 months ago he was about 1,500 for a BGS 9.5, and now they're ending at 3,500. So he's more than doubled in the last little bit. And I still feel that he's still probably one of the most underrated cards in the hobby at this point.
Yeah. Relative to the big guys in the other sports, the Bradys, the LeBrons, that kind of stuff. Yeah, I got to agree. But we are seeing hockey cards creep up in value, across the board, especially, and really the important cards for the most important players, which is great to see. Back to Mark Lee's comment about, are we seeing, is it getting to be too much like the early 90s? Just a couple of random thoughts I have on that, if I may. The world is a different place today, 30 years later than it was in the 90s. There was no internet back there. It was so much harder to find cards back then that were rare. Older cards, now you can find whatever back then you were lucky if there was a single Bobby Orr rookie card in your city, in a card shop in your city. Mm-hmm. Now you can go on eBay, you can buy one any day of the week pretty much if you want. So that's just one subtle difference between now and then. There was no eBay, there was no comps, there were no fractional ownerships, there were no online auctions, there was no golden PWCC, heritage, probe scene, nothing like that existed. And what we've seen lately is that people want options, and they want to have a selection. And back to that whole price point thing, I think it's just I think it really is apples and oranges. And if we get too hung up on trying to find similarities between 2020 and 1990, you're going to find some. You're probably going to find a few similarities, but don't let my caution to you is don't let that slow you down. If you don't let that draw the conclusion that that in 2 years from now we're gonna have another 1994. Where the hobby things I don't want to use the word crash, but I'll say it just to explain what I'm trying to say. But anyway, I just want to make those comments. Let's talk, Karvin. Let's talk about the Mickey Mantle, the PSA 9 Mickey Mantle that just sold last week. During this past week, $5.2 million, PSA 9. It's a population of 6. There's 3 10s that exist. I've heard all sorts of speculation about what a PSA 10 would be worth in today's market after a 9 sold for 5.2. I think the last sale was 2.6, 2 point something. Right. And it was when I was writing this down today, making some notes for our show right now, I realized that 5.2 million is 52 Topps, right? I wonder if that came into play when they set the price. But when you learned of that sale earlier this week, what went through your mind?
I'm shocked because like we said, 3 years ago or 2 years ago, the 10 went for 2.6, and there's actually apparently through the grapevine, I heard that there was an offer made on the 10 for $12 million and it was turned down. So I mean, that card will be the largest sports card sale of all time. The 52 Mantle PSA 10, if that happens. Or right now, at this current time, this is the largest sale for a sports card. And it seems like every month or every quarter of a year, we're seeing a new record. The Trout. I'm actually kind of happy to see a Mickey Mantle beat Trout right now. Just the vintage card should really own that record. And who knows what the Wagner would fetch now if it shows up. Who knows what's gonna happen with that card.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it was nice that a Wagner did recently sell for 3.8 or something like that. Like there was a Wagner that beat the old Wagner record. That was cool. But I'm with you, and I think a lot of people in the hobby are actually feeling like all is back in balance now, that it's a vintage card that owns the record as the most expensive sports card ever sold. Now, this was a private sale. It wasn't a public auction. So we don't know what it would have sold for if it was at auction. But in my opinion, it doesn't matter. The sale was consummated. The seller has come out. The buyer has come out very publicly and talked about the purchase and why they bought it. And he his name is Rob Gough. He's an actor. I don't know much about him, but I hope to learn more. Seems like a great guy, young guy. And he just felt that it was a card that deserved to have the record as the most expensive card. And he had the funds to purchase that card and set that record. So kudos to him. But yeah, I'm with the hobby. Brody made the comment. I just saw it here. He says that the PSA 10 could sell for $25 million.
We could.
Easily 20. I heard people saying 10 million, 15 million, 20. Why not 25? And I heard on Hobby Hotline this morning, Brody was co-hosting with Brian Gray. And Brian Gray made the comment that, it doesn't matter. The person that could buy that card, they could pay 25 million or they could pay 80 million. It's not going to make much of a difference to them. Those $55 million in between there, it's still a drop in the bucket to someone who can afford a card for $25 million. So, I mean, I would love to see one go to auction. I'd love to see another 9 go at auction and see what it would sell for. But it just seems like, 2020, the hobby transformed in 2020. And then we've been wondering what's 2021 going to look like. And it looks like 2021 is picked off right where 2020 left off. Right. Up right where it left off, and will continue. It just seems like things are continuing, but you never know. What are your thoughts, man? Before we move on to our next topic, what are your thoughts sort of on that, the recent trends in the hobby and what you think 2021 is going to look like?
Well, right now, I mean, we're seeing a lot of money coming in, whether it's new products or new cards or old cards or wax in general. A lot of influencers, a lot of celebrities, a lot of athletes, they're all coming in, buying, investing into companies that are set, the support companies, whether it's like we talk about Star Stocks, PSA, Steve Cohen, of course, owner of the Mets, is one of the VC partners, I believe. It's called Cohen, so I imagine it's Steve Cohen from New York. So I think that there's a lot of money that's coming in and investing into the business. Where it takes us, no one really knows. I mean, the pandemic is still kind of raging, so that also still keeps everyone locked down inside, and obviously their focus is on the hobby. But right now, I think it's still a good time to be buying. It depends what you want to buy. Like, I mean, I honestly, back in the 90s when there was a crash, what maintained the pricing? And it's really vintage cards is the one that, you want to go with your blue chip stocks, you want to go with your vintage, because you know that those cards are scarce. Sure, there could be an attic that opens up and there's like 10 Mickey Mantle PSA 10s that come out of there. But even then, if it's worth 25 million at $8 million, they'll be all snapped up.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, it comes down to the supports there. These cards don't come to market at all. Hardly ever come to the market. So those cards will still have that marketplace. Still have that support.
And that's why it's great that Mantle kind of took back the throne as the highest selling sports card of all time versus Mike Trout, who a lot of people, like everyone's heard of Mickey Mantle, everyone's heard of Babe Ruth. Everybody that lives in North America, unless you really are a hermit. But not very many people, relatively speaking, have heard of Mike Trout. I can mention him to people in my everyday life. They don't even know who he is, which is kind of weird. So everything's back to normal with Mickey Mantle being the highest card. Before we get into our next topic, which is we're going to call the next topic "Turning Back the Clock to 1989," because there's some stuff I know you want to get at. I do want to bring up Matt Godfrey just made this comment, so I want to bring it up. He says, "I really like Upper Deck Allure. What do you guys think about its upside?" Also, Jeremy Sports Cards Live, what do you think of Braden Point? I'm a basketball guy, but I got some of his cards. I just want to let you know, Matt Godfrey, I'm a big fan of Braden Point. He's from where I live, and he broke through last season. I think he's a great player. He plays on a great team. As for Allure, I think it's a nice product upside. I can't predict that. Karvin, any comments on Braden Point and Upper Deck's Allure?
So I think Braden Point is a great hockey player. I mean, obviously his pricing isn't that high, and it's a good time to jump in. However, when we start looking at teams, you want to invest into the alpha dog of that team, the one player. Like, Michael Jordan had Pippen. Pippen's never going to be as high as Michael Jordan during that time. And same thing for Evgeny Malkin and Sidney Crosby. So Braden Point becomes the focal point of that team. He will jump up in pricing. It's really Steve Stamkos' team, and Steve Stamkos is the main guy that the hobby is really focused on and investing. So, and he's starting. He has a good start again, and he's one of those guys that when we talk about 500 goals, he's getting up there too, and he might even be the guy that breaks Ovi. Who knows? I mean, we don't know. I mean, he has that ability. Now he's had a few major injuries, so that sets him back a little bit. But like if he didn't have those injuries, he'd be right up there.
Yeah, Stamkos has had those injuries for sure. Now, Kucherov is out, I believe, for the whole season, which hurts that team, but it gives other guys opportunities. But I could see Braden Point, for a while there was more hobby love for Braden Point than there was Steven Stamkos, last season. So I could see that happening. And it's too bad for that team that Kucherov's gone, but again, that will shift some of the hobby love back to Stamkos and also on to Braden Point this coming season. So, okay, thanks for that comment, Matt Godfrey. Welcome to the show. JSUT Card says vintage is the king, which hard to doubt that. And Hockey Card Official says Point is a beast. So there's some more love for Point. Michael Ham, welcome, says Trout was also 1 of 1. That helped it versus old cards, which condition more. But yeah, the 1 of 1 certainly did help it achieve that $3.8 million sale price. No doubt about it. Okay, let's talk about turning back the clock to 1989. Karvin, I'm going to let you just kind of lead with it. And what's on your mind?
So in '89, I became a dealer, set up at a flea market. I went to the shows. Back then it was called Kelly Promotions in Toronto. They always had an athlete. They actually had the first show that Eric Lindros went to, and that was Mayhem in 1990, right when Score came out, or before Score came out, I believe. But either way, back in 1989 or 1990, we were all buying baseball cards. Jose Canseco's were $100. Mark McGuire's like $30 to Stephen for the Topps 87 and the Flair, the Flair 87 Maguires as well, I believe. Those cards were going for top dollars. And for some reason, I didn't know why the Topps 85 wasn't a big card, because maybe it was Team USA at that time, but everyone was chasing those 87 Flair cards. And, you know, Ken Griffey Juniors were going for like $25. Meanwhile, in hockey, a Brett Hull rookie in 88-89 O-Pee-Chee hockey was selling for 50 cents. Boxes of 88-89 were selling for like $13 to $15 a box Canadian. So thus, what happened? A bunch of U.S. dealers, and I still remember those guys coming in from Michigan, not so much Buffalo, it was more Michigan and Boston. All these guys from Boston were coming in from New England area and just buying up every single Brett Hull. They went to the show and cleaned up all the rookies. So Brett Hull rookies were all cleaned out. Patrick Waugh rookies were cleaned out. Mario Lemieux. I don't know why I say Mario. His name is actually Mario Lemieux in Canada, but in the U.S. everyone says Mario. Tries to correct me on that. So
because of Super Mario Brothers.
That's right. Or, you know, just Mario. It doesn't matter to me. It's like tomatoes. They were buying up all the hockey cards, and then all of a sudden Brett Hull went from 50 cents a card up to $6 and up to $10 and then $20 in a matter of less than a year. So that's why I said, like, the influx of other collectors outside of Canada at that point really drove up the marketplace. And I start with 89 just because of Brett Hull. 89-90 was the beginning of the junk wax with, you know, the whole Joe Sakic, Craig Janney, all those rookies. But with this 88-89,
Benoit Hogue,
yeah, John Cullen. There's a bunch of them. Kirk McLean is another one. So
King.
all these cards prior to that, whether it was Patrick Waugh's second year, even Gretzky's, they were buying up and they were just cleaning out every single dealer at the shows, the U.S. marketplace. Then let's go back to what I was saying with 05-06 Cup versus Exquisite. Exquisite, when LeBron first hit, it was like $2,300 a card for the Exquisite rookies. Then it dropped to $1,900. Then when Crosby came out, it was like $2,400. It was higher than LeBron. And I was like, I wanted to buy a Crosby because I missed out on LeBron. I was like, okay, I saved my money. He's going to be like $1,500 because LeBron's at $2,300. No, it was higher than LeBron, and it never dropped. I was anticipating that first drop, how LeBron dropped to like $1,600, $1,700, $1,800. No, Crosby never dropped. He just went shooting up. It went to like over $3K the next year. I'm like, oh, I missed my chance. I'm not going to be able to buy a Crosby. I want to buy like 2 Crosbys. That's my goal. Now I just paid a ton more than that now. Yeah. I should have bought it back then. But with that being said, Crosby was outperforming because there was an influx at that point from the basketball, baseball, football collectors all buying hockey because they missed out on 03-04 Exquisite. So now they're buying into hockey, which, by the way, is called, to a lot of the non-hockey collectors, it was called Exquisite Light because it was a little bit cheaper than Exquisite, and everything, limited logos, signature patches, it's all the same names. So, and that's by design, by the way.
You mentioned when the Crosby Cup first came out at $2,600. I purchased the 3rd copy to appear on eBay back in 2006. I think I paid $2,850, something like that. And like you, I was thinking, well, maybe, you know, is it going to go down in value? Should I wait? And I thought, no, I better just grab one. I no longer own it. I've actually owned 5 different Crosby Cup out of 99 RPAs in my life. I've bought 5 and I've sold all 5. And of course, I'd love to have them all back right now, but it's just nice to know that I've actually been able to own 5% of that of that print run over the years. Mm-hmm. But yes, they came out about 2,600, and it's just been up and up and up since then, and it's never really slowed down. Whereas the young gun has seen kind of more ups and downs throughout his career. You know, where he had that one season where I don't know if he took the whole season off. I don't remember if he missed most of it. You know, his cards started to relax a little bit, and Ovechkin's became a bit more valuable. They've kind of been doing this for a long time, and they're still doing this. You know, it's still happening with the Future Watch auto, the young gun. And I think with the Cup, it's just such a rare card now that, you know, this race isn't happening anymore with the Cup because they sell so infrequently. It's like either card could sell and sell for that new price. It's just whatever's available at the time. Okay, there was a question about Cirelli. Thoughts on Anthony Cirelli for the Tampa Bay Lightning. I remember in my daily fantasy pools last year. I was taking him all the time because he was super cheap and getting a lot of points. I don't know. I don't really know much about the guy other than he gets points. They're so deep there in Tampa Bay. That's the thing. Is there going to be room for him to be a guy who is like investable? If that's what you're really asking, I don't know. I'm going to stick with the I don't know on that. But let's see what Karvin has to say about Anthony Cirelli of the Tampa Bay Lightning.
So when we look at a lot of the stats, there's a lot of players that just get great stats and they don't get a lot of love in any sport. And Cirelli has that opportunity that go to the next level, but we just don't know. Like a guy like Brian Bellows didn't get a lot of love, or Steve Larmer. These guys were like great hockey players at the time. The one guy that was kind of similar to them was Mike Bossy. He did get a lot of hockey love. So it really depends on his. Always look at a person's character too, the impact on his community, because when you are doing a lot for the community, people will start PCing you too as well. So that plays into it. And then longevity is always a factor too. So I can't really have a lot of comments on Cirelli. If I had to pick one outside of Braden Point and Steven Stamkos, it would be Vasilevsky. And part of the reason why I like Vasilevsky is he's a great goalie. But also when I went to the draft in Pittsburgh in 2012, he was the most personable player, most grateful player. He came into the room, met up all of us, like gave us bro hugs, shook our hands. He goes, thank you very much. He didn't even speak any English, but that's all he could spoke. But he went up to all 13 of us and did the same thing. We're like, wow, that guy is so energetic. This gets us all excited. And we all wanted to collect his cards afterwards. Those are factors. People that are very, very personable, great community leaders, reach out to fans, sign autographs, people will start PCing you, and that creates their popularity too.
Yeah. I think it's important that these guys are. It sounds to me like with Vasilevsky that he was humble. He exhibited some humility with you guys, and that's what I like to see in an athlete, and that endears us to an athlete. I feel, especially when you get to know. You always say you don't want to meet your heroes because they're going to disappoint you, right? Yeah. But in the case of, it's the opposite when you meet a guy who isn't your hero and you're so impressed with their personality and their level of humility when they could be arrogant because of their status as professional athletes, making a lot of money, that sort of thing. You can almost they can become a hero to you in that moment, and then you can go collect them. So I really think you're really on point when you say you want to watch a player for how they are in their communities, how they are, how their charisma is, how they interact with fans, media. What are you hearing about them? You're going to find better value in those players as a collectible if they are that way. Let's Terry Fortune is a big Bobby Orr and Wayne Gretzky fan. He was one of the entrants in the inaugural Sports Cards Live fantasy hockey pool, which we had on Wednesday night live on the channel. He wants to know, Karvin, did you design property ofs? Now, for anyone who's watching who doesn't know what a property of is, a property of is like a case hit that you may or may not get in a case of the Cup, and it's got they're all one of ones, and it's nice that they've kept them as one of ones, and they basically have the stamping of the name on the shaft of the stick is kind of removed from the stick and embedded in the card, and it's called property of. I love them. I think they're amazing cards. Karvin, can you let us know? Did you come up with a concept? Did you design? Design isn't the right word because you are a designer. You're a product.
Let me go over what I did. So I know that a lot of people are like, "Oh, I love this design. I love that design." I'm not a designer. We had graphic designers for that. Look at these card companies. You want the best people that does their job properly, right? I'm a card collector, so I'm not going to be able to say, "Oh, well, we want this type of foil." Like I'll specify which foil I want, but how much the foil is and how much the coverage is really up to the designers. You got to have some freedom for the graphic designers to design the card too. If you make it restrictive, then they have no creativity, then they're not going to enjoy their job. So more or less, that's why I use the nickname The Architect on Hobby Insider before, and I really just do the set outline. So I come up with all the inserts, the number of guys, which type of guys that we want to feature on solicitation, packaging, whether there's an autograph, whether we're using an autograph sticker / patches, memorabilia, jerseys, stick cards. So we come up with a concept, we get the P&Ls to work, and then how we construct it in terms of what we call forms. So it could be like 10 different sheets that we print. So we give that. We give the specifications, all the foil that we want, what patches, what size of patches to the designers, and they create that design. Now we do come up with an overall theme. So we say, hey, we want to see like maybe a white color background or maybe a black color background, those type of things, and have a central theme that should go across the entire set. We don't want something that's completely different from one card to the next in one set. Now going back to property odds, this idea was actually started when I first went to Upper Deck, because in 2002, I believe, we did our first bat cards, the bat barrel cards. So when I saw those, I'm like, well,
whoa,
sticks have the name, right? So there's a lot of like ideas that went through my mind, and some of these ideas are from collectors. Some of these ideas are from people that I worked with, or even different, just random people. Or to say, some people complain about white color patches. So when you look at Exquisite, scripted swatches. Scripted swatches are both in Exquisite and the Cup. The reason why I did that was because
Carv.
Yeah.
Just tell what a scripted swatch is for people who may not know.
Scripted swatches is an autograph that's featured on top of a game use patch or a photo shoot patch in the case of the rookie. So it's off the patch that we cut up, and the signature is on top of it. So the reason why I came up with that is that a lot of collectors complain, oh, I got diaper patches, I got one color patches. And I'm like, well, why not make them collectible and having an autograph? Now, here's something that I was actually going to go out and buy some of these cards, but the first time I ever did it was in a product in 0102 called the Mass Collection. And it was called Auto Patches, just simply Auto Patches, but they were actually signed on the game use patch. You had Cujo, you had Patrick Waugh, I believe, Martin Brodeur that signed them. And a lot of people didn't know that scripted swatches didn't even work in Mask, and I brought it into Exquisite, and then it was a big hit. Now, going back to property ofs, I have a funny story about property ofs, and you guys can get a chuckle. Initially, the reason why when I was doing it, I was like, okay, Gretzky. So I wanted Gretzky to be part of the set, and as a wooden, usually he was always a wooden stick that you can acquire. And I said, you know what? It's a shaft stick, and it's Gretzky, so I wanted to call it Shaft of Greatness. And then everyone's like, you can't call it Shaft of Greatness. Like, why not? I go, it's Gretzky. And they're like, no, you cannot call it Shaft of Greatness. It's all right. I understand. Maybe I was just trying to do it just to get a chuckle out of it.
You're making me blush here, Carv. Come on.
So anyways, someone said, well, didn't you say you want to do property of? I go, I don't really recall saying that, but that's a great name, property of. So we changed it to property of. So yeah, it was something that was always in the back of my mind in terms of doing as soon as I saw the bat barrel. And especially when we did a Babe Ruth bat barrel, and that bat barrel card sold for $20,000, yet the Babe Ruth bat only sells for like 10 grand at the time. So I was like, man, you cut up a piece of the bat, it sells better on a 2.5 by 3.5 than the actual bat itself. That's craziness, right? Even then, as a collector, I didn't. Well, but back then, I didn't even think that could be possibly happen. So, but as soon as I saw that, I said, "That's it. We're buying sticks and
doing it." I've never thought it's crazy. You hear comments from people all the time, especially on message boards and Facebook, saying, "Oh my God, the RPA with a piece of patch the size of a quarter sells for $20,000. You can get a whole game used jersey for $5,000." And I always say, I don't collect game used jerseys. I wouldn't pay $1,000 for it, but I'd happily pay more than that for the card. I collect cards. Card collectors don't really care what unless they collect both, don't really care what a whole game used jersey sells for or what you could buy it for. We collect cards. They're much more easy to transport, to display, all that sort of thing. But anyway, just a comment there. I want to say hello to Rodman. Thank you for joining us for your Saturday routine, Rodman. Always a pleasure to have you. And I want to, you're welcome, Hockey Cards Official. Michael makes a comment, hockey guys are the nicest athletes from any sport. And we hear that over and over again. It's nice to keep having it kind of reinforced and validated. And Ryan wants to know, did you ever meet Jerome McGinley, best, most humble star player ever? Do you have a quick story about Jerome McGinley at all, Karvin?
Sure, I have stories about all hockey players. I met Jerome a few times, once when we were doing signings, and another time at an All-Star Game event, I believe, with Wyclef Jen. He's a really easygoing guy. It just amazes me because obviously he's African American or African Canadian, I guess you can call it, the most politically correct term, I guess, African Canadian. but he has a hardcore Canadian accent. I just can't get over it when I hear him, because I don't really hear that hardcore Canadian accent too much in Toronto. But when you go to like Saskatchewan or Alberta, you'll hear more of that hardcore Canadian. He has that really hardcore Canadian accent, and I was just like, I couldn't get over it. But really easygoing guy, and to the point, the person that mentioned it before, hockey players by far are you have the easiest access to. They're always friendly. They're always willing to shake your hand, have a drink with you. It's not like the other sports. The other sports, a lot of these athletes are like beyond celebrity status, and you have no way of getting close to them. So hockey players, I've actually asked other sport people that went to the Super Bowl, or people went to the MLB All-Star game. I said, you got to come to an NHL All-Star game. After going to a couple, they're like, I'm hooked. I'm not even going to the Super Bowl. I'm going to the NHL All-Star game, because the athletes are just a ball to be with.
Yeah.
So
good stuff. Good stuff. To Jordan Riker wants to know, how do I keep my kids out of here? That's why this show doesn't start till 10 o'clock Eastern, because my kids go to bed about 7:30 Mountain, which is where I am. So we start this at 8 o'clock my time. But thanks for your concern, Jordan. No, they don't come in, which is great. Matt, I like this comment. I'm going to get more hockey because of upcoming Skybox Metal Universe, and I cannot wait for that product myself. Axonite says 90s insert and rare parallels don't have the same value than in any other sports. Thoughts on that? I think hockey rare inserts and parallels from the 90s in hockey are starting to wake up. So don't sleep on them much longer is about all I can tell you. They're waking up now. Rodman has a question for you, Karvin. What percentage of cards are held back from release and kept as backups or replacements?
There's really not a huge amount of cards that are held back. I know that a lot of people are like, how does a card company have a numbered card in the background? And that wasn't in the pack out. It was in the pack out. Let me explain something. When we do let's say a million packs of cards, I know that sounds like a big number, but I'm just taking a big number for that. And typically in any type of manufacturing company, you always have to factor in 2% waste. So if there's 1,000 cases, you can't just go with 1,000 cases and assuming that all 1,000 cards aren't damaged or made through the pack out. You have to have 1,020. So obviously you're gonna have those 20 cards that trickle back if everything was perfect. Sometimes it isn't, and you need to you probably have to cut production on cases of 2%. Sometimes the damage could be as high as 5%, and you don't have those number of cases. Or we also have we call the QC cases, the cases that we open to make sure that that everything's perfect. You can put sets together. We're getting a whole set of Young Guns and the upper deck case. And there's also cases that go to the leagues too. The NHL gets some sampling of product. The NHLPA gets sampling of product. So it goes in various areas, like a few cases. But there is those cards, those case hits, those box hits, they all come back. Before they weren't. Before they were just like thrown away and all that. And then when I was there, we started talking about it. So we want to claim that back, and that way we can give our customer service those cards to swap out for people to take care of them. Now, in terms of the other stuff, like say Young Guns, typically you would keep 25 to 50 Young Guns to make sure that if there's a damaged Young Gun, you can swap them out. The frustrating part is that everyone wants a 9.5 or PSA 10. Then if they feel it's a 9, they want to swap it out. And unfortunately, it's just impossible to manage that expectation. And once you guys ever take a look at the videos, or if there's any B-roll videos of the manufacturing, you would be shocked that even cards even come back as a PSA 10 or a BGS 10 or a BGS 9.5. I was when I saw those.
Well, good. It's a good topic, and it really segues nice into Amit's question here. So I'll throw this one up. He says, have you ever said that you'd like a design that would be hard to grade versus easy to grade, SP Authentic versus other black border products as an example? Well,
first, hello, Amit. It's been a long time since I've talked to you, I guess, since the last expo, but I mean, Amit goes back to the original HI days, so I want to, acknowledge that. And then we had some fun discussions, debates, and all that. And it's always a pleasure to talk to him. Sure, there's definitely white borders are definitely easier to grade than black borders. But when we're designing so many sets, you want to have some variety. You can't have every single set to be white border and then it's easy to grade because of that reason. What I truly feel is that I want to design something that I want to collect. And as a collecting mind, when I open a pack, I get excited about it. I'm not excited about a card like, that's easy to grade and I don't like the card. So first and foremost, you have to design an attractive card that attracts the collector to buy the card. And with that knowledge, there's also not every single, I mean, maybe today markets change, but not everyone sends them to grading. Some people just like to put them in the binder or put them in a top load, and that's it. Honestly, I don't care for grading. I mean, that's just me in general. And I can show you examples of how many cards I have raw grade review, like from 5 years ago. I still have them in the raw grade review, sticker versus slabbed. It's just a matter of to each person's liking. I like my cards in top loads or in binders. It's just much more consistent. Grading, you're going to have PSA, you're going to have SGC, you're going to have PSA new label versus old label, BGS with black labels, and silver and gold. For me, I like everything really consistent. Yeah. And that's the way, when we look at some of the designs, and I discussed it multiple times on IG, on Instagram, and also with you, Jeremy, I love symmetry. It really bothers me when I see a card that's sticking out in a graded slab outside of my top loads, and I'm like, just feels uncomfortable. Yeah. So that's just the way I am. That's how my mind works. Maybe not everyone else. Everyone looks at, wow, all the slab cards are huge values, and if I'm a collector, I don't even care about value.
I think people like uniformity, like as you're saying. I know I like uniformity, but I was pretty PSA loyal. I still like their slabs, but sometimes you got to buy a card for the card, and it might be raw, it might be in a BGS slab or an SGC slab, and you just got to buy the card because you need the card. And at that point, the slab doesn't matter. At least it's authentic, which is nice. Another question we had for you, which is sort of similar here. It's a follow-up question from Brett Miles. He says, I've always wondered if secondary sales and popularity in the open market comes into play with future product development and concepts. You sort of alluded to it a few minutes ago, but anything you can add to just how closely are the I mean, you're no longer in the manufacturing game, but obviously, these people, you talk to them, I'm sure. How closely do they watch the secondary market, and how closely do they, to what degree do they take that information and use it when they're planning upcoming products?
You always monitor the marketplace. I mean, once again, let me stress, firstly, this is my opinion, not the opinion of the people in the companies now, but you always monitor secondary market sales. Obviously, when you're looking at creating new concepts, new ideas, new inserts, and seeing, due to the scarcity of the insert versus demand, and you see that it works, then you're going to bring it back. You have to monitor the secondary market to know that works. I mean, it's, scripted swatches. It didn't work in mass collection, but I brought it back in Exquisite. And, obviously the scope was much more bigger, and it's LeBron, and obviously it hits, right? So it went from auto patch to scripted swatches, and then it's still being produced today by Upper Deck. So you have to look at it. So it could, but obviously the idea may be misplaced sometimes, and you can place it somewhere else. Or if you have a Crosby rookie year and it has that allure of that rookie and everyone's chasing it, then that creates that brand equity. So it depends on the placement, the idea, then execution to see it work. But a lot of times we have to monitor it. There's a lot of 90s inserts, because I was heavily influenced by 90 inserts basketball, and I put it in lots of variety of 2000 products. Like I put it in O-Pee-Chee. So O-Pee-Chee in 08, 09, I believe, or 06, 07, I can't remember the year exactly. There's something called micro etch. I don't know if anyone remembers that. They were numbered out of 100. They had a etched foil surrounding the player instead of the background of the photo. And that was all because of Totally Certified. Totally Certified had that design, that etched foil, and I was trying to mimic it in O-Pee-Chee and see how the response was. The response didn't do greatly, so you sometimes put it on the shelf and maybe bring it back another time. So you have to monitor secondary market values to notice. And also on top of it, you also look at ROIs. So if you get an autograph with Joey Mullen and he's costing you $25 and he sells for $5, probably best not to use them as much in upcoming sets. Let them be away for a couple of years and then bring them back, and then his value goes up.
Yeah. And, we know that guys from Upper Deck, for example, are monitoring the market. They've, Billy's been on the show. Grant Sandground's been on the show. They've talked about monitoring the discussions that go on Hobby Insider, which, if you don't know, is probably one of the more frequented locations on the internet for hockey card talk. And so, they're on there monitoring it all the time to see what's going on, what people like, to get the good feedback with the bad feedback. And there's no shortage of the latter, that's for sure. Sure. But as you said earlier at the beginning, as you kicked off the show and saying, we got to give these guys some credit too. So I appreciated hearing that as well. Terry makes a funny comment. He'll never look at his shaft of greatness the same.
Well, Terry, let's just, by the way, if you can't look at it the same way and you got to get rid of them, I'm a buyer right here.
Yeah, there you go. I've got a few property elves in my collection. Charles says, Karvin, what was the most fun insert set that you ever helped design and make?
They're like your kids, right? You have to love every one of them.
Yeah.
And then, to be honest, like when I created the cup, it was easy. I hate to say it, it was easy because it was like autograph patch, and plus I had the template from Exquisite. I added a bunch of stuff like dual honorable numbers, noble numbers. Actually, I put a lot more into the cup than I did for Exquisite because the price point was different. And we all know that the resale values, the secondary market values, even though Crosby was outselling LeBron, we don't have a Michael Jordan. We don't have a Kobe Bryant. Wayne Gretzky doesn't sell for what Michael Jordan sells for. So, those are the factors why the price point was different. And plus, that's why we called it differently, because we preached to the NHL that the cup was going to be the ultimate set name. That would be the creme de la creme. Mm-hmm. So they wanted to keep the cup. And to be honest, just between you and me, I kept it called the cup because I wanted it at $350 SRP US versus $500. Right. So had it been called Exquisite, the next year they said, well, go $500. Right. So I was actually kind of protecting the Canadian collectors because of the price exchange, because $350 at the time was about 500 Canadian. So I wanted to protect that exchange rate.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I actually have more fun doing something that's like O-Pee-Chee, because O-Pee-Chee is something that, it's something that I grew up with. So you bring, my mind goes crazy. I'm like, oh, what O-Pee-Chee cards do I remember? There was the highlight cards, so the 74, 75 quad leaders, or the coach cards, or the 72, I believe it's the 72, 73 Topps red and green bordered cards.
Yeah.
And the 75 with the quizzes on the back and the halftone browns on there. So I mean, I go back and forth and just remembering all my childhood memories, and those are the ones that really just nostalgia goes crazy. It just drives you nuts. And I probably bit off more than I can chew when I started doing one buyback for every box. I mean, I was searching through the 7 Cs, not for the white whale, but just to get O-Pee-Chee decent common cards, or decent shape semi-star cards, just to put in there. And we put like about 10 Gretzky rookies in there. I mean, imagine opening a box in 06, 07 O-Pee-Chee and getting a Wayne Gretzky rookie in there.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember you walking the aisles at Expo looking for cards for that. I sold you a stack myself that ended up in that product, it's always cool when the guys from the card companies come by your booth at a show, buy cards from you that end up in products. That was a real eye opener when that first happened. I want to just address Mr. LAGN's comment here. We're not going to talk about this tonight, but I am working on bringing on someone from Upper Deck who will be addressing that in the future in terms of the rounded corner issue on some cards. But that was an issue from their third-party printing vendor. In any event, I wanted to also mention we have Irving in the house. Irving, welcome. As always, great to see you, buddy. He says, what products do you miss building that would have a major impact in today's collecting community, Carv? You got something to say to that?
What products do I miss building that? I'm not sure if I miss building products that much. I mean, look, right now it's all fond memories. But when, I think Jeremy realizes that when we were doing hand packing, he was invited to a hand pack because he wanted to do a database of patches. He didn't realize how much work was involved. I think immediately afterwards, he goes, I'm never going to do this again. Or this is like, he almost broke his back trying to take photos and watching us pack cards. And then I think, 6 months later, you look upon that experience, you're like, man, that was kind of fun. So I think, stepping away for a while allows me to say, I got a lot of fond memories. I got a lot of fond stories I got to share with everyone. There are times when I get frustrated because I'll look at something like limited logos in 0506, and I remember those discussions, and that's not a fond memory. Someone asked me, said, hey, do you want to buy a Sidney Crosby limited logo? I said, hell no. And just because it's the memories that it brings, they're not good memories for me. But I do miss building products. And, as I told some people, I said, when I build products, I don't put everything out in the product, like all these crazy ideas I have. I still have a bunch of ideas that never came to fruition. In fact, one of the main drivers is Exquisite, that no one even knew. One of the concept cards never even made it out to any product at all. So that's from 0304 Exquisite.
Well, maybe we'll see some of those in the future if you're offering your consultancy services to Upper Deck, Panini, Topps, that kind of thing. Leaf, right. That'd be cool to see. Let's move on. We have a question from Rodman. For both of us, we'll start with you, Karvin. What is your long-term strategy with your collection? Sell at a certain point or pass on to your children or grandchildren?
So I'm not good at practicing what I preach. That's the first thing I'll say. What I would say is that for any collectors, and depending on where your starting point is, you should always have a destination or a goal that you want to reach. So number one, what is your goal? Is it PCing Michael Jordan? I know, Rodman, you collect, I believe that collects Dennis Rodman and Michael Jordans and all high-end inserts. So if that's your goal, then you should be disciplined and keep to it. But with that being said, doesn't mean that you can't acquire other stuff to collect assets. And I mentioned this yesterday on one of the podcasts. I said it's always good to acquire stuff like a baseball team. You want that franchise player. Maybe one of these prospects will be that franchise player, but these prospects that you collect, you can always trade for a franchise player later too. So you collect assets, you build up your cardboard wealth, and you can trade it to acquire the stuff that you want, especially the white whales that you want. So I think it's really important for me, to be very disciplined and focus on what that is. For me, for my daughter, I want to give her the Crosby rookie. So that one is not for sale. And then afterwards, if I can upgrade it, I'll upgrade it with a better patch, one that corresponds to Jeremy's database, which I have to give heavy kudos to about the Crosbys. We can always check if that patch is original patch, or at least from 16 years ago on your database, and that's great reference.
But I haven't updated that in over 10 years, by the way. So what's there is all that will ever be there.
Right. But at least we can cross-reference anything that's out there, that it's on there. Second of all, I think, exquisite cards. I do have an exquisite Bosch rookie. If one day I hit the Mega Millions, then I'll look at buying a LeBron rookie and I have a lot of, I guess, community friends or exquisite friends that have LeBron rookies, and maybe they'll give me offer that one chance I can buy one off them. And if I ever have that, then those are the 2 cards for my daughter. That's all she needs.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything else. Maybe I was thinking maybe Elias Pettersson, maybe Luka, because he was born in 18, and Elias Pettersson, that's his name, right? Not Elias.
Elias Pettersson.
He's a rookie in 18-19, and he has the same birthday as my daughter, so he makes perfect sense. I'm just not a Canucks fan, that's all.
Yeah, but I think he's going to be a great player. Mark Lee says, where'd it go?
You went past it?
Sorry. Here. He goes, I thought I was getting the Crosby after all these years, but your daughter wins. Yeah, no doubt.
Mark. Thanks for giving up on it.
Back to Rodman's question. I'll just try and answer this quickly. Rodman collects Jordans, and he has,
okay.
I've seen his collection. It's phenomenal. It's an amazing collection. But for me, my collection, I think about it all the time. What am I going to do with it? I'd pass it on to my kids if they want it. So we'll make that determination later. If they don't want it, if they're not interested in it, it's going to go for sale, hopefully, in my final years. I've always kind of considered myself, I'm building up this collection so that I can enjoy my twilight years doing the card show circuit and selling off my collection. And then with those proceeds, that money will go into my estate and go to my kids for sure. For their education, their houses, whatever it is.
But one thing I would like to say to all collectors, and I know that people post things on Instagram, and I try to, when I post on Instagram, to tell a story, whether it's about the athlete, about the journey of collecting, and I think that's really important. Like each card, like it's like the 8 million stories in New York, or whatever the case is. Everyone has a story. Every card has a story. Whether you open it in a pack as a kid, whether you open it and you weren't expecting it as a huge hit in your possession, or how you traded up to get that card. And I think storytelling is what we all enjoy. We just enjoy, listening to what people had to do to get that card. And I want to basically preach to all the Instagram posts and say, hey, tell us why you want that card. Especially if you're a collector. I understand investors wise or fund managers or fractional, the companies, that's different. But for collectors, tell us why you want that card and tell us how you got it.
Yeah. The only thing I'll say, sometimes we want cards because we just like the way they look. We like the player, and we,
right.
we like the rarity. Sometimes it's not that interesting.
Say that.
Sure, say it. That's fair. Your story of why you wanted the Cup Crosby RPA is one of the more interesting stories possible because of your history with that product. But I hear what you're saying. Tell the story. Yeah, I think that's good. I want to address another question that we got from Instagram. It came from hockey_card_official, who I think was watching earlier with us, may still be. And you alluded to it. I just want to make sure we do answer it because I told him we would talk about it. Was what influenced your ideas for the Cup and Exquisite in those early days? What were your influences? Now, you did mention 90s basketball inserts a little bit, but can you build on that at all?
Sure. All right, so this is something that I bought, and I just recently bought a PSA 10 of this card. And Rodman, I apologize. I thought you collected because you're called Rodman Collector, I believe.
That's his name is Rodman.
Right. No, I thought he was collecting Rodman.
I did too, until I realized his name is actually Rodman.
Yeah, I apologize for that. But here's a card that I bought. Okay, I do have a whole set still. I showed it on Instagram about a year ago or less than a year ago. This is the Michael Jordan Master Collection. So the idea of the etched foil, you'll see that in 94 SP, 93 SP, 94 SP, and also in Black Diamond. And that's the technology I really wanted to bring back in Exquisite. So that was the inspiration for the base set, was really the whole Black Diamond, but more of this Michael Jordan look. So I wanted a white base, white background card with some black in it. Also I included all the technology, basically full board in terms of cost. You can do whatever you want. Also, I asked for some sort of contemporary look because I was influenced by a movie called Pollock, which is a biography with Ed Harris on Jackson Pollock. And I was like, man, I can't believe art becomes like that, because I wasn't into art. How it was like painted was, the scribbles and the paint drops, and how that was a mistake. And I was like, man, I got it. And you'll see through a lot of the sets that I built, I asked for that kind of design. Like there's one called Fresh Ink in Fleur Ultra. And all I said was, I just want paint drops like fresh ink, right? Just like Jackson Pollock. So that's why on Exquisite, you had a contemporary design with the paint brushes, like the incomplete paint brushes, like the distressed look, like in furniture, distressed look jeans. That was kind of in, but I guess I asked for it on Exquisite. And outside of that, so there was something that happened in 2001. I think we discussed it. We actually had a trivia question. In 2001 football, SP football, it was kind of struggling after 2000. It was a bad draft. And 2001, they had to revitalize the brand. And they said, well, why don't we do rookie patch autographs? Right. And I know that there was some discussion you had with some other podcasts that said, well, the first one wasn't Exquisite, but the first true rookie card that was an rookie auto patch was Exquisite. And I know that in 2001, I was new at the game. In 2001, 2002 basketball, they said, Karvin, you have to put the rookie auto patch into SPA. I said, no, I refuse to. And I was kind of surprised because all the senior VPs were saying, no, you have to. And then I think my senior VP, I was reporting to, basically said, look, Karvin's just been here for like 6 months. Let him do his craft. Just if he feels he's confident that he can build a good SPA brand, then let's do it. So that idea was already there, the RPA. I did it in Ultimate as a variation, so it's not the true rookie card. I did it in other sets. That's, once again, it's not the true rookie card. But the true rookie card was the first one, was Exquisite. And I knew that as soon as I saw that Chosen One Sports Illustrated magazine, I said, that's it. That's the year we're going to hit hard with a product that's going to be high-end and RPAs. So that's what the inspiration is from. It's actually from that magazine when I saw the Chosen One.
Makes a lot of sense. I want to do one more question I got on Instagram. It came from @goat.sportscards. He wanted to know why as far as game used RPAs go, in 0506, we had 3 game used RPAs out of the 90 of them. Sidney Crosby, Alexander Ovechkin, and Mikko Koivu. He goes on to say, why Koivu but not McDavid, who was 10 years later, so things change. But can you speak to that for a couple minutes?
Sure. So ideally, we'd love to use game use for everything. There's a couple of factors. One is cost. Obviously, game used jerseys are extremely expensive for the rookies. It depends on what team they play for. And second of all, it's also, if we use game used jersey, you're going to get a lot of one color patches, as we saw in terms of Crosby acquired. It's a one color patch. With photo shoot worn jerseys, you can have more variety, more jerseys, and you can offer more colors. So in the McDavid issue, I can't speak on behalf of Upper Deck because I wasn't there, but probably they couldn't acquire a game used jersey at the time. Hold on a second, I gotta get some water.
Go for it.
But with Crosby and Ovechkin, we managed to get a game used jersey, so we wanted to put it into the cup, and I think that's ideal. However, just remember, when you're producing the cup, it takes about 2 months to cut the jerseys, get them into the cards, and then the players have 2 months to sign them. So that's 4 months, and factor in hand packing and everything, roughly about another 3 weeks. So 5 months before even the cup coming out, you have to have the game used jerseys in hand, and also factor in cost. Like photo shoot worn jerseys, it's all game ready jerseys. They cost about $400 a piece. A game used jersey of McDavid, you're probably paying like $35,000, right, for a rookie year jersey, and you're gonna get a lot of single color patches. And by all means, everyone thinks, oh, the card companies are greedy and all that. No, the guys who control the P&Ls are the guys that are in the product development team, like myself and Grant, and we have marching orders to give us a percentage that we have to be at, and we want to hit that percentage or slightly better. We don't go there and say, oh, we're going to go 50% better. It doesn't help us. I mean, we want the product to perform, right? So I think it's a matter of just acquiring the jerseys and getting it into people's hands. If I had to say you get a game used jersey in McDavid and get sticker autos on the cup, would you say that's acceptable? Probably not. If you get a game used jersey and it's a redemption, is that acceptable? Probably not either. So, there's concerns. We have time constraints, the availability of product, and the cost.
Yeah. Okay, let's go on. I got a question here from Stephen Ho, and basically it comes down to the last sentence, Karvin, where he says, the second last, the packaging for cup made it difficult for conditions. What kind of went into the deciding factors for how these things were packed in with those felt borders into the box and the tin? And Stephen Ho, by the way, was on the show back in August, I believe it was. He also owns the finest copy of the Crosby RPA. He has the BGS 10 copy that he bought at public auction. What can you tell us a little bit about the packaging and how did you guys sort of reconcile that? Does the packaging damage the cards?
I think it's overstated in terms of the damaging of the cards. It's just that I understand everyone's perception. So first, it comes in a tin, and it comes in a little tiny box inside the tin with foam. So it's a box. So 0506 especially, because later on we came out with the cards being surrounded by the foam with the finger holes to prevent that perception of the damaged cards. I mean, the reality is that a lot of these cards get damaged because, number one, they're thick cards, so they can get damaged at the printer when they're cutting it. And we're not talking about huge damages. If it's huge damages, it's all QC'd. We remove them. We produce new cards for them. And then all these cards has to be sent out to the players to get signed. I mean, all you have to do is look at Vlad Guerrero signing his autograph cards and saw how he was handling those cards. People were kind of freaking out that he was throwing cards in a box. Well, that happens. I can tell you stories of players, some angry players, and the cards were all damaged, and we can go through that another time. It was a trade that happened that pissed off one of the players. So with that being said, it's going to the players, them signing it, patching it back up, and sending it back to us are concerns. The other factor about cup was that it's also a silver grayish edge with a white edge, so that factors into it. Anytime that there's a color edge, will have more damages. If a cup card was miscut and a little bit oversized, yes, will be concerns. But one of the ways that we kind of prevent damages happening to the key cards is that we don't put the key cards in the bottom part of the box. We don't put them on the top part. We would try to at least put a base card on top, or maybe a base card or a redemption card on the bottom. Ideally not a redemption card, because when you hit a big card and also a redemption card, you're like ended on a sour note. So the last card you see. So ideally base card and base card top and bottom, or a jersey card in the bottom. That type of idea that, we kind of said, hey, let's do it this way, so that if there is a damage or something like that over years, that card is not the most expensive card in the pack. So.
Okay. We mentioned earlier the database that I had built back in the late 2000s, and Brett's asking, how long do you think it's going to be before we see a database on high-end cards? And I think what he might be getting at is like produced by the manufacturers. He's asking, is it an inevitability? And I mean, I think we'd love to see it as an inevitability, but I've asked people from Upper Deck and Panini on the show a couple times, and we don't really get an answer like it's going to happen. It seems like it's too cost prohibitive is what, or it seems to be the general sentiment. I mean, I did it with you for 0809 The Cup. I photographed every patch card in that set at the pack out facility. So I know it can be done. I did it. So I kind of want to take this question and change it a little bit to, number one, do you think, I like the question, is it something that can happen, but do you think it's necessary? Do you think it's something that should happen? And do you think it will? And what we're talking about, sorry, Carv, just for everybody's, what we're talking about is a photo database where collectors can reference to look and see if a card that is a valuable rookie patch auto has the same patch in it that the company manufactured, or was a one color patch swapped out very carefully for a nicer, more interesting multicolor patch to increase the value of the card. We call it patch faking. And right. It's augmenting the card from its original condition. It's a no-no. It's a faux pas. We don't want it. That shouldn't be happening in the hobby. And one way to protect against it is for the card companies to have a database of images of all the cards they produce, or all the, let's say, even the RPAs. Now, back to the question, Karvin. What do you think? Should it happen, and will it happen?
I think we talked about this back when you're doing the photographing, right? There's concerns I have on both sides. Every decision has a pro and con. The con for me is that if you know that there's a 4-color McDavid rookie, and you see a lot of 1 color, everyone's going to wait for that 4-color to show up. And not everyone is going to be as knowledgeable as saying that 4-color is only 2 or 3 in the world, right? Obviously, we know about the oil drop. And in the case of the McDavid, I mean, Upper Deck had a database. If you go back to our blogs, they showed almost every single card of the McDavid card just for that reason. But here's the problem. When you do it for McDavid, everyone that's collecting the 5th best rookie, or the 6th best rookie, or the 13th best rookie, they're saying, hey, you're doing it for McDavid, why can't you do it for this guy too? So it comes down to the request is almost unattainable, because the time, yes, can you imagine having a high def picture, which takes up a lot of memory in your server, of every single patch card that you ever made? And yes, I can see people saying, well, I just only want it for the cup cards. But then the guys are going to say, I want it for the ultimate patches, the big patches. That's more important than the cup cards, right? So the problem is that everyone's card is the most important. Their cards are the most important to them. And keeping that database, we looked at the cost of it. It would cost probably in excess of close to $1 million a year just to keep a database with the manpower and the server necessary to do it. So at that point, do you say, well, if you want to see your card, you can zoom into your card and you pay a fee to look at it? Well, no collector wants to pay a fee for that reference now. They'll say, hey, I paid for my packs. Why do I care? So it comes down to, it brings up a lot of question, a lot of extra cost. And I hate to say it, the cost, they'll just be carried by the final price, right? It's not going to be, the company's not going to say, well, I'm just going to invest millions of dollars into a database. It's going to come down to the collectors paying for it.
Yeah. Okay. No, thanks for the answer. We're going to wind. We got some time left still, but I see we have lots of comments coming in. I want to just bring up Ryan Rome. Thanks for the comment. He says, does it annoy you that Upper Deck keeps doing buyback rookies with signatures? For example, McDavid seems to have one done every year. So first of all, I appreciate the question, Ryan, but what I don't like about it is that you say McDavid seems to have one done every year. I'd prefer you come with actual facts. Does he have one done every year, or has he had one or two done? Because that's a big difference here. So I don't want to get into it too much, but as far as that goes, I think as long as they leak them out into the hobby at a controlled and a planned and strategic sort of manner and fashion, so as not to flood the market, then no, it does not annoy me. Karvin, a quick comment?
No, I mean, if it's as long as they're not doing the multiple of the same cards, right? Like they're not doing the buyback young gun for out of 97, another one out of 25 out of 10. I mean, that's a unique card. I mean, I love buyback cards. So
yeah, fair. Courtside Collectible says, "Hey, Carv."
Hey, Ken.
Okay, we've got some comments about the $1 million. Of course, people, of course, there's going to be sort of the he said, she said, if you will, but we're just going to leave that conversation where it was, because Karvin is no longer working for these companies, so we don't need to debate that. Kick down, yeah, talking more of that. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about, and I got to go back and
find. Let me go back on the $1 million that everyone's talking about. Just
sure.
Remember, when I talk about a database, that's for 1 year, and it has to be carried over. So you got to double your server size for that every single year, triple it the third year, quadruple it. And obviously, with more patches, you're going to increase that server size. So, like the card companies don't have mainframes in their company. Now, with cloud technology versus before, when we didn't have cloud technology, it's definitely different. So
right.
I'm not a tech person, so
you guys would have looked at this probably right after I came down there, which was in 2009, right? Thinking, are we going to do it next year? Because Upper Deck saw me do it, being you and the team that was there. So
we looked at it before then. It was just like, because I actually we had a security team, and they were doing it. And the other factor is that it delays. So for the patch cards, they actually did about 3 players, and we were a month and a half late sending out cards to people. So then we wouldn't get them back. So that's another issue too. You can't delay product by 3 months just because we had to have images of all the cards, especially our side, right?
No, you'll hear it from the hobby in quite a harsh manner. They are, people already don't like how late the cup comes out. If you had to push it back a couple more months or right. Whatever amount of time to take images, that would be just causing more problems. Rodman has a good question here. He says, do we know when Panini's exclusive NBA rights contract expires? Is there a slight chance Topps or Upper Deck will try and get those rights back now that the market is booming?
I mean, I don't know when it ends. It's for the foreseeable future was the comment that Panini made back a few years ago. I mean, there's always an opportunity for other companies to jump in, but let's wait and see. I mean, I can't really comment on what's going to happen, and I'm not the NBA's or NBA PA, right? So I can't really give you an opinion on it. I mean, I could tell you what I like to see happen, but at the same time, I think Panini has done a great job for what they have in terms of the NFL license and also the NBA license.
Well, the word on the street is that the leagues only want to deal with one licensee per category, sports cards being a category. And that's the way it is. I brought up the point a couple of weeks ago that I thought, things are a lot different now than they were last time these deals were negotiated, last time these deals were bid on. So the hobbies exploded, the leagues, if they haven't noticed yet, someone's going to tell them pretty soon, and they're going to notice. If there's I believe if there's ever been an opportunity for there to be competition within each sport, now is the year, or now and moving forward is the best opportunity for us to see more competition.
Right.
But then, Rich Klein, who watches the show and was on Hobby Hotline last week, very, very sort of aggressively just said the leagues only want to deal with one licensee, full stop, end of sentence, etc. I still think that's a little short-sighted. I think that, hey, if there was ever a time, there's more money at stake now than ever. Maybe it's worth it for the money to hire someone to manage the licensees.
I think that the leagues has concerns. Obviously, we talk about competition. We talk about by doing so, but there are a lot of concerns about having multiple licensees. And I think as a collector, we always want to have choices. And I would like to have choices too as a collector. But also when you start looking at the business and managing the business, it's a lot different because you're having to appease both sides. There's always arguments between competitors, different licensees, then there's also the fact that there's, marketing dollars that have to be spent, and who's the beneficiary of the marketing dollars. There's all these issues that are at hand. And, even when we at Upper Deck had the license with Topps and no longer Fleer, we would have to pick jerseys. We had to pick a whole team, like an all-star game. I get this jersey, you get this jersey. We have to draft jerseys. And that took a whole 3 days. That's a lot of work just for doing a draft on game used jerseys from the all-star game. So I think those are issues where they're like, then of course, if you look at NFL, Madden has the exclusive rights to NFL. The apparel, they all have exclusive partners. So, I'm not sitting here saying that it won't happen. But at the same time, you can always write to the leagues and say, hey, we'd like to see this happen or that happen if it's possible. And I'm sure when the time comes, Topps and Upper Deck and other card companies or potential new companies would submit, their proposal, right? And I think that's only fair that the leagues would actually review all proposals coming in.
Mike Kohler makes a great comment here too. He says, especially if the leagues are losing money due to COVID, right? Here's an opportunity for them to bring in some more revenue. I want to go back up, Karvin. There was a comment that came after you mentioned the $1 million. Kickdown makes a comment saying, I'm going to photography school tomorrow. If card companies think a database of 3,000 cards per set costs $1 million. So because Karv, we say something like this and somebody gets this interpretation from what you said, which he totally missed the point of what you were saying. That's not what, I don't know where he got 3,000 cards per set came from. That's not at all what you said. Do you want to take a second and just set the record straight before this particular viewer goes and tells all his friends what he thought he heard?
No, it's okay. So let's say just like Exquisite, right? There was 42 rookies, right, in the set. Let's say it's 42 rookies. Typically, I always put out 42 cards, right?
Well, Karv, before you get into that math, I'll just say the year that I did it, I went and photographed every patch card from 1 year of one product. It was 28,000 cards. It wasn't 3,000. It was 28,000 cards. So Kickdown and anyone else who heard it that way, you heard it wrong. I won't say you heard it wrong, but there's more information than you know. So I just don't want anyone to walk away from this and go off and tell everybody the card companies aren't doing it because they don't want to pay. They think it's $1 million to capture 3,000 photographs. I just want to make sure that we're not leaving anyone with that.
Yeah, please. This is something that I discussed in privacy with the company, right? And we actually investigated in terms of how much storage is required and how much work. It's not.
How about labor? How about human labor?
Labor is a big cost of it, right? So you're talking about 4 people working that make $50,000 a year, and overtime costs. And 4 people will not be able to achieve even coming close to getting sets done immediately, especially when you're looking at high def. And also, it's all high def photos. So they had to have an SLR camera like you did, had a tripod, and 1 card at a time moving it into. 1 card out of 99 would cost at least one person the whole day to take photography. And that delays the process. So by all means, don't take the $1 million as in it's a database only. There's a lot of other costs involved too. It's the cost of labor. It's the cost of now we have to do FedExing overnight to players to get it signed, get it back. Do we do it before we send it out for players, or do we do it after sending out to players? So yeah, don't take the $1 million. I'm just saying that the cost was enormous, and it was impossible to even put it on a server. We would have to buy a new server just for all that. Now, because of today, back in 2005 and 2006, 2007, there was no cloud servers. Today, there are cloud servers, and that could be a little bit more achievable. But what would you rather have? All this additional cost into it, or you'd rather have content into the product? So, and there are ways to review the patches and be buyer beware. And there are things that, I know Panini has some sort of security too. I don't want to sit here and give away all the secrets what Panini does. It's something that you guys can talk to Panini about what they do.
Well, something else that came up with, I think it might have been Chris Barr from Panini, product manager, when he was on the show with me a few months back. He mentioned that, nowadays, so many cards are pulled on camera, and those videos are available on YouTube and elsewhere. So it's even back in 2006, when I started my archive, that was the hobby, doing it to protect ourselves. And I'm not saying it's our responsibility. I do think the responsibility lies with the manufacturers to protect the future value of the cards that we spend good money on. I'll never come off of that opinion. But in the absence of that, we as a hobby have the opportunity to document our cards and make those images public and all that. And especially, it also puts a premium on knowing where your card came from. Did you see it come out on a breaker's channel? Do you have that video? Can you attach that video to your card in some fashion if you're going to sell it and show, hey, here's the guy pulling it from the pack originally? That's a pretty cool feature to add to a card.
There's also the hobby policing. So there's a lot of collectors will tell you that's probably not real, right? I'll be honest, I will never disclose if a patch is real or not real, right? I'll give you some ways of how you can find out perhaps it's real or not real. Just for one thing of note, now this goes back to when I was working, but every jersey that's being cut up or a photo shoot or game worn, they're all game ready jerseys, even if it's a photo shoot. So if it's not the same material that's underneath the patch, or even in fact, a lot of the patches aren't even the same material on a replica swingman jersey or an NHL replica jersey with the actual game ready jersey, then that gives you your answer.
Yeah, we've seen fake patches that came off a baseball cap, a smaller scale logo, right. That sort of thing. Right. Mike says, Jeremy, you did the work of 4 people. Yeah, I did. But I also took pictures of like 72 cards at a time. I put in a lot of preparation ahead. I went to camera school and I practiced what I was going to do. And when I got there, I was taking like gang scans. But at high def, so I could zoom in it when I had to zoom in and, after the fact. But I think what Karvin's mentioning is they'd want to do one card at a time. Matt Godfrey says Jack Hughes or Quinn Hughes. I know nothing about hockey. I say both, but Ryan Rome says neither. So, but I think both the Hughes brothers are going to be great in the league. That's my opinion on that. Let's move back in time in the comments. Yamwax, if you're still there, I've had your comment in the back of my mind. First of all, Corey says to you, Karvin, congratulations on landing your grail.
Corey.
Very nice. He goes on to say, I've heard you're dabbling in digital collectibles. Do you have a favorite card/moment from that space? Now, before you answer, Karv,
okay,
there's something out there called NBA Top Shot. And NBA Top Shot is basically a blockchain-based collectible that they've called moments. So they take an actual 30-second or so clip from a game of a certain player, and they package it up, and they offer it out in packs, and you get these moments in packs. You open up the packs on your screen and you see these plays, and then you own this play. You own the video of this play, and they number them. And there's a certain amount of them made. That's the extent really of what I know. But the key feature about these things that I do know is that this product is NBA licensed. They have a license from the NBA, which I think gives it a huge amount of credibility. And all of the sort of naysayers out there for now, you have to consider that the NBA is behind this particular product launch. Again, it's called NBA Top Shot. So, Karv, what can you tell us about these? I've done very minor research into it. What can you tell us about these moments?
So, I actually, someone mentioned to me about this app, and obviously a few people that we follow on Twitter was mentioning how much money they made. And whether it's a spam tweet or not, I don't know. But you definitely see they have everything encased in that one website. Now, right now, it's not an app yet, a phone app or a mobile app. It's only the website's in beta testing. You could buy packs, $9 for 3 moments. The moments are numbered anywhere from 4,000 to 7,500, I believe, and they're all serial numbered. Even though it's not truly serial numbered, it says number 428 out of 5,000. So you own that, and they immediately, as soon as you get it, you can go into a marketplace and you can put it on. So someone I was talking to, and someone's actually watching the show right now, they actually sold a LaMelo Ball moment for $57. It sold him within 5 minutes, and the money's deposited into his account. The app itself takes 5%, and these are just the base cards we're talking about, the base sets. So if you finish the base set, you get some cred. They call you something else. You go up in rankings. Right now, I think when I opened quite a few backs, I was like ranked number 115 in Canada, out of the Raptors fans. So out of how many Raptors fans? And what I have to say about this is that it's backed by a lot of money. Samsung is one of the big investors. the cryptocurrency companies are big investors, and we all know how much money that the cryptocurrency companies have. The aspect of it is like, if you go back 15 years ago, I think my mindset's changed ever since the Kindle came out. So the Kindle, the Amazon Kindle, right? When people show me the first time, this is the Kindle, I'm like, what's that? Oh, it's a tablet for reading books. I'm like, but what if the Kindle goes out? What if you lose it? It's a digital book, right? How much are you paying for digital books? Well, almost the same price as a book, but this is easier on the eyes. It's easier to carry. But remember, I'm a pack rat. I'm a collector. I want to own first edition of books if it means that it's worth something, even though 99% of the time it isn't, but that 1% is going to kill me when I find out it is worth something, right? So I was like, why would you want to buy a digital book? Doesn't make sense. Well, that one Kindle bridged off to iPads, tablets, the Fire, all these different, it's just a whole new generation of thinking and reading books now. And now it add into the apps, and now the Surface, and these become mini computers now, MacBook Pros, and not MacBook Pro, iPad Pros. It all bridged out from one idea like the Kindle. Then you go into esports. How many people know about esports? Why is there billions of dollars in esports? I don't know why. You know, why is there gaming gear worth hundreds of thousands of dollars being sold from microtransactions? I have no idea. I don't understand it. I don't understand cryptocurrencies, but I'm also 50 years old, or over 50 years old. So my thinking is way past the new generation of thinking, right? So I thought Pokemon cards would be out after 2 years. I didn't think Pokemon would last 25 years and worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, or I would have kept my boxes that I had back in the day. So I want to just challenge people before they say, oh, this idea is stupid, or poo-poo it, or whatever, give it a shot, think about it. But someone else alluded to me about digital art. I mean, I never even heard of digital art, which is also another blockchain type item, where guys artists are doing digital art and selling 5,000 print runs of a digital art for $10,000, and they're being sold out in 10 minutes. So it's just something that I think, if you want to dabble in it, take a look at it, and if it's not for you, don't buy it. But as a card collector, obviously it's not tangible. But what's fractional ownership? Is that really tangible too? It's not. It's just, I own a piece of it, right?
Well, what's card collecting? It's just pieces of cardboard. I mean, you can attack any of these things. It really, all it comes down to is, are people willing to spend money on it? Yes or no? Because just because you aren't, you don't project that on the rest of the world. Don't think just because you're not willing to that other people aren't. A Luka moment, I think it was, a guy I know recently opened up a pack he paid $240 for. He hit a special Luka moment. I think it was Luka, and he sold it for like $24,000. So somebody out there paid $24,000 approximately for a Luka moment on the NBA Top Shot website. And this guy made a ton of money on that. It was Vegas Fine 777. I'm sure he'll be talking about it on his YouTube channel. He tweeted about it. That's how I know about it. So it's a real product, i.e. it's a true offering. I don't mean it's tangible, but it's a real intangible product offering. It's licensed by the NBA, which is super important. It gives it a ton of credibility. And the real question is it going to be a flash in the pan, or is this thing going to be around 5-10 years down the road? And we're all going to be kicking ourselves for not going over to NBATopShot.com or whatever the website is called, whatever their website is named right now, and buying some of these moments, if you will. But anyway, I think it's interesting. I want to learn more about it. I'm not diving in head first or anything like that, but I'm curious to see where it goes, because I think it's an interesting concept, and it's based on cutting edge technology, and that's pretty darn cool in my opinion. All right, man. Well, we've still got about 10 minutes to go here. Rodman's on fire tonight. He puts out a really nice open-ended question. I see some people in the comments are answering it, but I'll put it on the screen. He says, what's the best? And I love that Rodman's asking it because, and I've said it on the show before, but I know we have new viewers all the time. And to all new viewers, by the way, welcome to Sports Cards Live. Happy to have you. If you're not yet a subscriber on YouTube, please subscribe. Greatly appreciate it. Hit thumbs up, all those things that we ask for on YouTube. They help, apparently, and we appreciate it. I like that Rodman's asking it because Rodman is a very focused collector of basketball cards. And I think, probably 95% Rodman, correct me if I'm wrong, probably 95% Michael Jordan, 5% other players, if that. but I like that he's asking because maybe he's looking to join us in the world of hockey.
Sure.
So the question is, what's the best advice to any collector looking to get into hockey cards? I'll let you kick it off, Karvin.
Okay, so I know that I'm a little bit different than Jeremy, and I know Jeremy likes collecting some of the inserts. My biggest thing is that ultimately in any trading cards, the one thing rules all, and that's rookie cards. So it all depends if you really want to chase the really elusive cards or you want to chase rookie cards, and are you investing, are you speculating, right? So like for example, this cup card, that's the Exquisite Crosby. That's what it is, right? That's the Exquisite Crosby. If you get Ovechkin, that's the Exquisite Ovechkin. They're both RPAs. They're both numbered to 99. They came out in their rookie years, and that's the card to get. That's the rookie card. For Topps Chrome, as I said earlier, these two cards, right? Young Guns. So Young Guns Crosby, Young Guns Ovechkins, because there was no chromium technology at that time, and I'll explain why this is the case. Back in that time, there was only one company that was licensed, that had the trademark to do chromium cards. And that one company had an exclusive with Topps. So there's other sets that Upper Deck did called Reflections. They were like chromium-like foil board that we were trying to mimic the whole chromium look. On hockey, the set that everyone collects rookie cards is Young Guns. And in fact, if you look at Topps Chrome LeBron, which is going for about $20,000, and the Crosby's only at $4,000, that's only 20%. So this is why I say Crosby is the most underrated player, underrated rookie card. And I managed the collectability of both players. They came in during my tenure at Upper Deck. LeBron, Crosby, 2 years apart, right? Phenomenal players, first pick overall. You look at LeBron, prior to him winning the LA Lakers championship, he won 3 championships. He won 2 gold medals. Crosby, what did he do? He won 3 Stanley Cups with the Pittsburgh Penguins, had 2 gold medals. And we didn't get into GOAT moments here, but let's talk about GOAT moments. If you had to pick out a single play that won a championship for LeBron, one moment in time where you can say, I know. And I said it in my Instagram post. What is a GOAT moment? It's a moment for you where you remember that play, watching it, what you were doing that day, who you're with, probably what you ate. That's a GOAT moment. Okay, the GOAT moment for LeBron was blocking Iguodala's shot to win the championship for the team that he originally got drafted by, Cleveland. Great moment. However, there's something that to be said about a moment. We as card collectors visualize as kids as our idols. And what do we do as our GOAT moments? It's always for basketball. If we're down 2 points and I hit that 3-point shot when the buzzer goes, that's what wins. That's what Kawhi did. That's what Michael Jordan did in terms against Boston. That's what Michael Jordan did against Georgetown in '82 with the Carolina Tar Heels. So those are, to me, GOAT moments. I remember the day when Jordan scored that the winning shot against Georgetown. I watched that game. I remember that. That was the first ever NCAA game I ever watched. And I became a Jordan fan from day one from that point on. I also watched him in the 98 game against, or 99, is it? 99, right? No, 98, I think, right? I can't recall. Sorry, my mind's fried. Against Utah, against Byron Russell. I remember where I was lying on a couch watching that game in my house in Toronto. Not my house, my parents' house, I guess. Kind of, yeah. I can't remember everything again. Exactly. For Sidney Crosby, his GOAT moment was the one moment that's probably cherished by at least 90% of all Canadian hockey fans. He scored the game-winning goal in overtime against the United States in Vancouver, hometown Olympics in 2010. Of course, I remember that game. I was at that game. So that was one of the opportunities. Like after that game, I'm a Leafs fan. I'm a Raptors fan. Horrible luck across the board. I said, if I was going to leave Upper Deck after this one game, this was the time that I would leave Upper Deck, because there's not going to be another moment like this. I mean, we all cried. We were all hugging each other. I was with the NHLPA. I was with Upper Deck, the owner of Upper Deck. And we were embracing each other, just screaming out the anthem, everyone crying together. It was just a beautiful moment. And I'm sure that was the same case for across all the different living rooms across the entire nation of Canada. And then probably some bittersweet Americans in their living rooms too, which actually makes, I think, some of the Canadians even more happier that that happened. But I mean, it was just that moment is the greatest GOAT moment, because prior to that, 1972 was called the Summit Series, where Canada played against the Russians, or the Soviet Union at that time. Paul Henderson scored the game-winning goal, and he became basically a national hero for many years because of that moment. So I would say Crosby, Young Guns is the buy, and then of course the Cup rookies if you want to spend more money. But with Young Guns, they don't have refractors, but they have something called the glossy and the buyback. So those two cards, they're out of 10. They're extremely expensive, extremely rare, never comes up for sale. But those are the cards to chase if you want to spend money on it.
Okay, well, good answer for Rodman. I'm going to take a slightly different approach, as you knew I would, Karvin. You know, I agree that the rookie cards do drive the hobby, but I think we're seeing a bit of a shift. You know, we're seeing inserts, rare inserts, and parallels becoming highly sought after, led and kind of pioneered. My perspective, pioneered by the great basketball collectors out there. Not to say that 90s hockey inserts weren't heavily pursued by hockey collectors back then, but you know, I get a ton of enjoyment from those rare inserts. Rookie cards, it's like, yes, I collect them too, and I want rookie cards in my collection. But to Rodman's question, if you're someone who's coming into hockey, the hockey hobby is so much more than just rookie cards. There are a lot of great. There's a ton of great inserts and a lot of them are going to be very appealing to the basketball collector because they're based on a lot of basketball inserts. So, and we're going to see a whole product release coming out in April called Skybox Metal Universe. That's going to really, I think, leverage that. So I'm very excited about that. But, you know, and I noticed that Brett basically gave the general rules, like the core rules for collecting. Have fun. Find people who are positive, engage with them, ask questions, and explore what your budget allows. But then he realized that Rodman isn't brand new to collecting, and I like this because Brett says, I answered with the mindset of a person entering the hobby for the first time. Sorry about that. But Rodman goes on to say, you know, it's all good. Your answer was spot on, which it was. So I want to just appreciate, as does Rodman, Brett's comments that should be taken by everybody. Those are kind of the golden rules of collecting, I would say. Is just have a good time. And I see other people are recognizing that as well. Brody says, great advice. I've been listening and trying to learn more about hockey. Good stuff, Brody. Terry gives some advice as vintage goats are always the way to go. Hard to argue with that. Ryan wants to know, is that Crosby golden goal on any hockey cards? The person who could answer that would be Barry from ComC, who's probably watching quietly in the background right now. But Barry from ComC tends to know where you can find cool cards like that. I want to bring up, I just caught the word jambalaya in a product, one of my favorite cards of all time. So I'm going to bring up Yamax's comment. He says, I love that 90s Fleer and Upper Deck basketball inserts were adopted for modern hockey. So guys like McDavid and McKinnon have jambalayas, PMGs, etc. As do I. Legion gives us 7 rounds of applause. That's his max, Carv. I think it's his max. So we're doing great. Thank you, Legion. As always, great to have you here. Andy Mack says that Paul Henderson scored 3-game winners to end that series, being the 72 Summit Series, but many Canadians don't know who he was today. And that's true, because that was his only real moment. His NHL career was a fine career, but nothing spectacular. So true enough. And here he is, as I mentioned, ComC Barry says there is no golden goal Crosby card. So he timely response, Barry. I knew you were watching, buddy. I knew you were there. All right. And David Weir says there's no way Crosby's golden goal compares to Gretzky and Lemieux teaming up to win the 87 Canada Cup. Not even close. Good argument. I mean, I got it. David, I appreciate the comment, but it really depends how old you are. It depends where you were in your life when you were watching that. I lived through both, and I cried at both of them. For me, and I'm in my late 40s, I put them, they were both awesome in their time. I was younger in 87 than I was in 2010, but I don't necessarily think one is better or worse than the other. I really appreciate both of them. So that's just me. And ComC Barry says no company has the rights to produce Olympic cards, but it would be nice. And that's why we don't see that. So thanks for that context, Barry. Really, really helpful. Okay, well, I think we've hit on just about everything that we planned to, Carve. We have a couple minutes. We can go for about 10 more minutes, and then we got to cut it off. I need a break because I have after hours starting in 25 minutes with Richard Ho, who's an awesome collector. And it's going to be fun to have him on later. So I invite everybody back to watch that. It's a bit of a more relaxing episode than this one. And so that'll be a lot of fun. But Karv, anything else you want to that comes to mind?
No, I mean, David, first off, I mean, if you read my Instagram post, I do reference the Wayne Gretzky, Mario Lemieux goal. So I remember I just caught the end of that game down to like the last 2 minutes, and I saw that. I was like, two of the goats at the same time and scoring that goal. I think that's what made it special, you know, in that Canada Cup game in '87. But obviously, part of it for me was it's Olympic gold versus, you know, the World Canada Cup, and also I was at that game, so that made a big difference for me. So, you know, just feeling the atmosphere in that stadium that day.
And, you know, also the world has changed in the early I'm thinking about the Summit Series now, which really a lot of people would argue that Paul Henderson's goal is bigger than both of those other ones because it was Canada versus Russia, you know, the Soviet Union, right. 87, you know, and let's be clear, and David Weir, to you too, that was a humongous goal in my life because the person that won that face-off that led to that goal was Dale Howardchuk. I'm from Winnipeg originally. You know, he was the best player ever to play for that team until Teemu Selanne came around. But that's another story. You know, that was I remember being in my parents' house jumping up when that goal was scored. I remember it not as well as I remember the golden goal, but I do remember it very well. So, you know, the world has changed, right? As you mentioned, Karvin, that was Canada Cup. So it was a bit different than the Olympics in 2010. The Olympics was a big deal in 2010. So, but I think we can agree, David, that both moments are very special to us as Canadian hockey fans and Canadian sports fans. Okay, I want Bobby Burrell in the crowd. Thanks, Bobby, for joining. I want to thank you, Karvin. Thanks for sharing. Interesting show. Thank you, Bobby. Yeah, I agree with you, Luke. They got to make a golden goal card. Maybe the Olympics should get their act together and find a way to maybe bring in some revenue if they could. Yeah, Brett says all three goals are iconic for each of those eras. That exactly in those eras. And it's like comparing players between eras. It's tough to do. Comparing these goals is tough to do. There depends where you were in your life when they happened, right? They're going to be more important to certain people based on how excited they were at the time. Andy Mack says that Crosby has a golden goal card, 2012-13 in the game history of hockey set. Sweet card. Thanks. Yeah. That would not be a licensed card is sort of one of the things. It's still a card though. Still a card. Rodman, thank you very much. Appreciate having you for your Saturday night. As always, Kelly Winters, thank you for joining us. Karv, I want to thank you for joining me, man. So it's really cool, man. You joined me on episode 2, which was the first episode I had a guest on. I've had guests on every episode since then, except for one of them. So you were my guest on episode 2. That was like a special episode for me. You were a guest on episode number 30. I think I renamed it 31 because I wanted an episode 30 to be Dr. Beckett on my show. But we had that special episode. That was a great episode, one of the most views ever for a show on Sports Cards Live. And now episode 75, which is an anniversary episode. I didn't make any hoopla about it, but this is episode 75. It's a big deal. It's great to have you here, man.
Right.
And we go back 15 years now as friends, so it's just always nice to have you on. Legion says good night. Matt Godfrey, thank you for joining. Peace and fun to you as well. Building, who is a great commenter on the videos, always learn something new from these shows. Not a hockey collector, but kind of thinking about it now. Mission accomplished, right? Let's grow the hockey segment. It's a great segment within the overall hobby, and I collect all sports, so you know I think I have some qualifications to say that. Big unit. Thank you very much for joining. Glad you enjoyed the show. Legion, we'll see you at After Hours. Yam, Corey, always good to have you. Dennis Lescombe Sr., thank you for the 5 Fire Star. We appreciate that. Thank you, JSUT. Brett, thank you. Al, great to have you as always. Thank you so much. Karv, we're gonna wrap up. Thank you, Terry. I'm gonna keep clicking on these comments as they come in as people say goodnight. But final comments from you.
You know, I love to see the hockey love. I mean, it's kind of funny because for me, I actually love basketball more than hockey to a certain degree, but then the Canadian in me, I guess, the genetics and all that, I still love hockey. The one thing that I would say for all basketball collectors, what you should do is take some YouTube videos and watch some of these guys practice. They're shooting, they're skating, and you would be amazed the skill that hockey players have, number one. Number two, feel free to DM me if you want, or hit me up on Instagram. We can talk hockey, and I encourage you. And third of all, hockey has the best patches of all sports.
Yeah.
It's got the best patches. Like, the logos are incredible. When you start seeing those patches, I think that's what turned a lot of the other sports collectors into hockey. So going back to 2006, Upper Deck used to have something called the Diamond Club. And Jeremy did partake, I believe, in 2008 with the one with Tony Romo. 2009. That's 2009. So the first one, I believe, was 2006. We had LeBron James, and we had all these big collectors that stores nominated because they were they're big supporters of their stores. At that event, I believe there was like 3 Diamond Club collectors that bought hockey. After spending 1 year with me, 2 years with me, 60 to 70% of all the Diamond Club guys were buying hockey. And they're like, man, this community is great. The hockey community is just really different. And I think Jeremy can attest to that. It's a very close-knit unit. There are a lot of set collectors, a lot of PC collectors. They collect certain players. They'll help you out, help educate you. They welcome everyone on board. They're just a great bunch of people. So, but definitely, if you want to collect hockey, or anybody wants to talk to me, you can DM me, you can Instagram me, and we can chat even more. All right.
There's Karvin's Instagram handles right there, at Karvin15, guys. Reach out to him, follow him, all that. I want to remind everybody to give a follow on Instagram also to at the Big Three Hockey, great supporters of this show. And these guys have awesome cards. We're going to just wrap it up here. Daniel, yes, we will see you soon. Bobby makes a great comment. He says, 1972 Team Canada game versus Russia. Almost every school in Canada had a TV in their classrooms showing that game. I mean, I've heard that story before, so that comes as no surprise. Darcy, good evening, says hi to us. Miss you guys. Go basketball. Karvin, miss our visits from Expo. One of the best times.
Sure.
Loves your sets. Kickdown says hockey has the best team logos in general. Patches are awesome. No doubt about it. An anonymous Facebook user says Karvin rocks, which I will not dispute. All right, guys. Also, just quickly before we wrap up, upcoming episodes next Saturday, Brad Hartland from PSA Canada will be joining. That's going to be interesting. And the week after, Brett McGrath from the very popular and very insightful podcast Stacking Slabs will be joining me. I can't wait for that one. I can't wait for every episode, but that's going to be awesome because this guy's just a great personality in the hobby. I can't wait to have him on. That's it, Karv. We're going to sign off. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Coming back in 17 minutes on After Hours with Richard Ho. Hope to see you all there. If not, we'll see you all next Saturday. Have a great week ahead, everybody. Thank you for joining, and good night.